and so just got to keep working at it. We'll miss Scooby obviously the first half of this game, which is not ideal for us. He's been a very consistent player for us this year, so that'll give other guys opportunity though. So that's it.
On Saturday night, you had talked about how Devin has just been banged up enough.
Yeah.
It's still questionable each week. Is there a situation where Bird starts this game or the last game, or kind of where do you kind of see that? Is it still just kind of up in the air?
Day by day is what we're taking it, and that's the best answer I can give you. If I knew any more than that, I would share most of that with you, or some of that. But it's just a situation where Devin, there's a lot of physicality in his game, with all the runs he does, and scrambling from the pocket in addition to the design QB runs. So he takes some physical. It takes a physical toll on him, but he's a tough kid. He loves it. He's not he loves running the football, and he's been effective at it. So we'll just see what happens. But certainly there is a scenario where you could see Bird. I'm sure of that, but we'll see.
You guys have blown out teams in each of your wins.
Mm-hmm.
Are style points kind of consideration for you guys with the college football playoff?
No, I don't believe in humiliating anybody or trying to run up the score. When you're playing a throw team like Baylor, no score. You got to have a 4-score lead to be safe because they throw the ball so effective they can strike from anywhere, and so that's a little different than if you're playing a team that is a run-oriented team and you get up a few scores. But no, to answer your question, I don't subscribe to that. We don't subscribe to that. There's been games this year where we certainly could have piled on more points, but I just don't think it's not who we are. Yeah.
Morning, Coach.
Morning, PK.
Now, I know you're going to say your focus is on Kansas State.
Absolutely, 100%, and nothing else matters.
You don't even know that it's your birthday this week because it's all.
Oh, stop! I can't believe he said that. Okay.
But I'm going to ask you this question anyway. The way your team is playing right now, which obviously is at an extremely high level, do you think right now that it is playoff worthy?
You know what? We're going to take things one game at a time, PK, and see if we can see how we do against Kansas State. But I'll tell you right now that this team has a lot of confidence. We've got a lot of momentum going right now. The leadership is outstanding, and we think we're playing good football. Is it good enough? We'll find out. We got to take care of our business first, starting with this week. And when the dust settles and the regular season's over, we'll see where we're at and what kind of opportunities are there.
You'd mentioned that Devin in that situation sort of day-to-day, obviously with him just being hampered with the injury. Is there any scenario this season where you shut him down just because you're worried about his long-term health, or is the injury, I guess, severe enough for it to render him just shut down for the season?
No, and we would. That's not my decision. Obviously, that would be a medical decision. And so you're asking, going forward, are we going to shut him down, or
is there any scenario where that happens? Is his injury severe enough in that case?
As it stands right now, no. As it stands right now, but you got to be able to function and be, he gets pretty sore and pretty beat up, as I mentioned, and so, but no, we don't feel that he's been put in harm's way any more than the next guy as far as long term and that type of thing.
Kyle, after the game, you mentioned that Devin, his mastery of the offense and just his experience in the offense is what led to the decision to keep him out there. But how do you balance that versus how he's performing, how he's executing in terms of how playing him?
Yeah, well, it's all in the equation. It's game by game and within the game itself. When we feel that the game is out of reach, then we've tried to get him out in those situations, and we've supplemented him, as you noticed, throughout the game with Bird. Sometimes they're in there. A lot of the time they're in there both at the same time, but Devin doesn't have a lot of a role when Bird is at the quarterback. He was more of a guy that just is window dressing out there. But we just rely on the medical staff to help with those decisions, and as long as they say he's good to go and he says he's good to go, then we just try to do things as intelligently as we can, and like I said, when the game seems to be in the bag, so to speak, then we try to get him out of there.
Kyle, at the beginning of the season, you said that this could be the greatest offensive line you've ever had. 10 games in, if they met expectations,
100%.
ask them.
100%. They're
Surpassed
surpassed.
expectations.
I would say as advertised, exactly what we expected, and if anything, maybe even better than we expected. You know, we're second in the nation in rushing the football, and that's a real good indicator of the physicality and the talent level of your front.
And then, did you happen to see the catch that went viral by a certain player that will go nameless?
Certain high school player?
A certain high school player at Rice Eccles Stadium?
Absolutely. That was very impressive for that, whoever that guy was. And it's as good a play as I've ever seen at any level. I don't think I can get in trouble for saying that. We still don't know who the guy is, but anyway. Yeah, good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Kyle, I kind of wanted to ask you a big picture question. I know you mentioned you're focused on Kansas State, but it seems like you have 2 starting caliber quarterbacks on your roster, and you obviously view them very highly. You know, there's been scenarios in the past where teams like Texas have had Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning on their roster long term. Given just the way the offseason goes, is there a scenario where you can see Bird and Devin staying on the roster next season together, just given the circumstances of how the portal is and all that?
We sure hope so. You know, and that's remains to be seen, and that will be addressed. Obviously, they've tweaked the recruiting a little bit now in the dead periods, where December is now completely a dead period, and the portal does not open until January now, and so you have a little more time after the regular season to sort those things out than before. Before, you'd have to start those conversations now with a lot of your players as far as what their plans are and that type of thing. But with what Bird's done this year and what Devin's done for that matter, we're going to have to really step up to hang on to those guys, and that's really an administrative thing, it's not in my court. That's what kind of resources we can come up with to keep the roster together, and it'd be interesting to do the study. My guess is if you took a study of Power 4 football rosters, the $25 million rosters, the 20, and with the average win-loss record, it would just follow suit exactly with the resources available. So yeah, everyone's trying to step up in that regard.
Who's the better thrower between the two?
You know, Devin, they have different styles. Devin gets the ball out extremely quick. He's got a quick release. He's able to go through the progressions a little quicker than Bird because he's so familiar with them. Bird maybe has a little more zip on the ball, a tad more accuracy at times, but they're different types of throwers from the pocket, and they're both outstanding, but just different. So I don't know if you can say one's better than the other. They both do it their way.
Good time for one more, Sammy.
Jason Stokes Jr. only played 13 snaps on Saturday, but he had that good pass breakup. What have you seen from his development that has given you guys confidence to put a true freshman out there versus some of these pass-heavy teams?
Yeah, well, he's progressed ever since he got here. You know, we obviously liked him out of high school. We wouldn't have recruited him. We thought he had some real upside, and you're right. He made a really nice play in the game on Saturday, and it was an opportunity to put him in the game when we got to what was it, 49-20, I think, is where we felt the game was pretty much out of reach, and gave him some opportunity, and a lot of that was Scooby, going out early, gave us an opportunity to put other guys in, and then Jason was next in line, and so that it was kind of a chain reaction. But I can tell you right now, we have a lot of confidence in Jason, and he's a guy that, as I mentioned, has really gotten better week by week and works hard and has great attitude. And Sharif, Coach Shaw just thought it was time for him to maybe get some game action and show what he can do. Is that it? Okay, guys, thank you.
10 minutes. Quick one for Kyle Whittingham on a Monday press conference. Always fewer things to ask after a impressive, dominant performance by the Utes than after a loss. And look, he covered a lot of what I think people are wondering about. Once again, the conversation about a quarterback health scenario is being handled at the University of Utah. I think in a nearly ideal fashion this year. So give credit to the coaching staff, everyone involved in this. Give credit, of course, to Devin Dampier. But the fact that Kyle Whittingham is openly acknowledged now in multiple weeks that, hey, our quarterback's not 100% healthy, and he's not practicing probably enough. He doesn't say it that way, but he's not practicing enough. And you're still getting these types of performances, not only out of him, but out of his backup, who, as we saw again this week, is an incredibly valuable player for this team. It's some type of disservice to just call Bird Ficklin the backup quarterback, because he's more than that. He's your spot duty quarterback at the very least, and it sounds like, there's a possibility he might end up starting another game or maybe two or however many as this Utah football season progresses, and there's not a whole ton of progression left. But give credit to the coaching staff for learning the lessons of the last couple of years. Kyle Whittingham, first and foremost among them. Give credit to the man for realizing that a little bit of transparency on this doesn't hurt you as a team, doesn't hurt you as a coach, and allows people to say, all right, well, it looks like they've actually done okay here managing this. I'm a big fan of Devin Dampier. I'm a big fan of Bird Ficklin. I'm a big fan of the idea that even in this new era of college football, you found a way to help those guys coexist on a roster and be big-time contributors, both of them, in winning football games. And it was a smash-mouth performance from the Utah offense where your quarterbacks, at least with their arms, didn't have to save the day by any stretch of the imagination. As you heard Kyle Whittingham mention there, 380 yards of rushing offense in this game. 380 yards. 166 of those from Bird Ficklin on only 6 carries. He had the 2 long 70-yarders for a couple of touchdowns. Wayshawn Parker would be the toast of the town and the talk of everything were it not for those huge plays by Bird Ficklin. Wayshawn Parker, 15 carries, 129 yards. For all you math whizzes out there, that's nearly 9 yards a carry in this game. And then you had a little smattering of 3 different guys. Nakari Rogers had 2 touchdowns in this one. Nate Johnson got in there, and Nate Johnson got robbed of a touchdown, by the way. That was a touchdown. Nate Johnson hit the pylon. They went to review. They said no. Devin Dampier, Daniel Bray actually was quiet in this game as a guy who's emerged as of late. But what a performance by the Utah offense. 55 points and 483 yards of total offense. Now, defensively, this was one of those games that you're like, wait, how? What? Mathematically, there's not a lot of things that make sense here. I'm actually really excited that Coordinator's Corner this week is with Morgan Scalley, because there's lots to discuss with Kansas State. It's a tough team to stop, a mobile quarterback that can do some really nasty things. But also, I want to pick his brain about, Sawyer Robertson passing for 430 yards in this game. If you just looked at the production, 563 yards of offense for Baylor is not what anybody wants to see. However, timely plays by your defense meant that 563 yards of offense only translated to 28 points. And I know only translated to 28 points is something people don't like to hear, but 28 points, as we've talked about with Utah, as we've talked about these last 3-4 seasons, in college football, if your offense can score 30 and you've got a defense like this, you're probably good. Now, this is on the top end of the scoring you want to allow, and you don't want to allow any, but this is at the top end of the scoring that Utah football is comfortable being able to overcome. And, of course, your offense did more than just overcome that. Also, your defense scored, which you got to give them some credit for. There were fewer pass rush big plays for Utah than I thought there would be in a game where Baylor dropped back 58 times. I thought there would have been more sacks. There was a missed sack opportunity by Logan Fano where he slipped, fell down. There were a couple where you got a hand on Sawyer Robertson, but you got to give him credit because he scrambled and extended the play and did what he was supposed to do. I thought the pressure rate from the rush itself, from the four-man rush, was a little lower than I would have wanted to see in this game. But it's so nice to be able to nitpick. It's so nice to be able to say, well, I know you won in blowout fashion, but I would like it to be a little bit more perfect. This Utah football team right now is humming. They are as good as anybody else in the country right now in the important part of football, and that is winning the line of scrimmage. Got to do a little bit better on the back end, guarding those 50-50 balls. Got to do a little bit better with tackling once guys bring those things down. But, man, it's unfamiliar territory and in a refreshing way for Utah football to be able to afford a couple of defensive miscues and still win a game by 4 scores. I mean, how many times have we watched Utah football, even good Utah football teams, in the power era since you joined the Pac-12 more than a decade ago, where you're just like, oh, this defense is doing everything. The offense, we just need the offense to score like 3 times. 55 points. 400 yards of rushing offense, basically. And Kyle Whittingham was asked in that press conference, which will be available at ESPN700sports.com for the rest of the week and in perpetuity. If you missed it, check us out on the app. We'll find it in the on-demand section there as well at ESPN 700 Sports. You have to give credit to the offensive line, who we are very demanding of. Me more than anyone, right? In Utah's 2 losses of the year, I've said, well, why didn't this offensive line go out and win you the game? And, guys who watch the offensive line unit with a more educated eye than myself have come on and said, well, hold on. They actually played decently well. But I was like, no, I don't want them to play decently well. I want them to dominate in the most important games of the year, and that's probably a little bit of an unrealistic expectation in some cases. But now this offensive line has clearly taken their role on this team to heart. And they know that as they go, so goes the rest of the team. Devin Dampier is banged up. Devin Dampier is less than 100% healthy. Do you know what kind of a luxury it is for Devin Dampier, who's a little bit sore, who's a little bit compromised, to be able to take snaps behind that offensive line? Just do yourself a favor. Go through some of these Baylor passing plays, not even the pretty ones. Go through some of these passing plays. That there was a couple sacks for Baylor, right? Those sacks were not on the offensive line, all right? The sacks that were given up in that game were on indecisiveness and the lack of the wide receiving core's ability to get open. The offensive, one of those sacks, Devin Dampier gets sacked 9 seconds after he takes the snap. All right? This offensive line is special. And is it fair to say, well, compare him to every other offensive line that's ever existed at the University of Utah? No, it's not. But, man, this group is a semifinalist for that Joe Moore Award for a reason. And when you talk about the resume tape you're putting out there, I promise you this. The Joe Moore Award Committee is going to watch this Baylor game, and they're going to see several plays of 60 yards or more. There's, 3 of those in this game? Wayshawn and then Bird's 2 runs. 2 of those, nobody gets touched. Wayshawn does not get touched. The hole is wide enough, and his vision is good enough. Nobody touches him. There's not a defensive hand on him between when he takes the ball and when he hits pay dirt. And the same is true of Bird Ficklen's first run. And the second one, I think he had to, spin out of a little bit of contact from a defensive back. I promise you that the offensive linemen, the former offensive linemen that watch and evaluate the tape, they're not going to punish this group for a 9-second sack given up by Devin Dampier.
They might even reward the group. Hey, you held the pocket clean for 9 seconds.
Like the second sack that was given up. And look, I love Dev, and I'm not going to make him explain this because he's got to get some people open downfield. Like the receiving core needs to do a better job. The route structure, whatever. We got to figure out what's going on.
It's true to say, hey, Devin, like we always do, hey, throw that away before the sack. But anyway, beyond that, we're nitpicking when we say that's on Devin.
But what happened in the second sack, Caleb Lomu has his guy. You know when the rusher goes wide, goes out and tries to turn this corner all around. Caleb Lomu's got him walled off to where he's no longer rushing. Closing the pocket. He has gone all the way around the pocket. He's on the backside. Caleb Lomu is now facing the opposite end zone. All right? He's blocking homeboy, whoever he is, with his butt to the original line of scrimmage. Caleb Lomu's own back is now facing the original line of scrimmage. He's completely turned this whole thing around. And he's just and the reason the sack happens is because the drifting of your quarterback ends up taking him outside of that pocket, outside of where that cocoon of safety has been created by these monsters up front on the Utah offensive line. And they can't see where Devin is going. They can't see that the receivers are not open downfield. And so the defensive end in this case has the advantage of being the guy that I was trying to get to when I'm looking I'm being blocked from my left. I have to get to my left side. I can't. Oh, look, now I can just go to my right because he's there.
Yeah, he drifted into the area.
He drifted into a spot where Caleb Loma was pushing me.
Which, by the way, if you're going to be nitpicky about Devin on that one, quarterbacks, that's what you do to try to run someone open, right? To try to create an opening there, and then
you probably just need to get rid of the ball quicker.
You do need to get rid of the ball quicker. That's fair. But as you said, it's probably more on guys need to get in the open space so we can find them, than it is about throw that ball away on both of those sacks.
And again, these are all these are the minutia type points that you can digest in a game where Utah smashed Baylor. The offense stepped up in a way that they were not capable of stepping up the last 2 years, certainly. But outside of the Cam Rising Pac-12 championship years, this offense has not been able to do this. You cannot find me a Pac-12 offense outside of those years that was capable of this. That was capable of all right, defense, you know what? Give up 400 yards. We're going to be fine. It's always been defense, keep us in this game, and we'll do just enough to get you the victory here. This is a complete and balanced team. This, if they can finish it out, and the focus is appropriate, and Kyle Whittingham kind of evaded the question on what about style points? What about the college football playoff? He did the right thing and said, we need to take care of our own business first. But if Utah does so, did anyone log on to ESPN.com today and take a look at the little gadget that they put in, the playoff predictor? Have you seen this? It's it's an interactive tool.
The November tradition on ESPN.com, yeah.
A little interactive tool where they put all the teams in the field with a percentage next to their name. Right?
Just like you see on every ESPN broadcast, they say with a win, it's this percentage. With the loss, it goes down to this much chance to make the playoff. You can do that yourself online with hypotheticals. Yeah.
The wild thing about the predictor right now is if you click on Utah and you say they win their last 2 regular season games, they also have an option. Well, wait, did they make it to the conference championship game? Does Utah get into their conference championship game? And if you click no on that, it still gives Utah a very high percentage chance of getting into the college football playoff. Because now we're talking about a 10-2 Utah team. Even without getting in, there's some love there. I can't remember what the exact percentage is, but it's 80-something. Right now, Utah, according to ESPN's metric, algorithm has a better chance of getting into the college football playoff than BYU does. And the hypotheticals that we talked about last week with the Cougars making it back to a rematch with Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game, put that in the predictor. That they win these next games and then they lose to Texas Tech again in the conference championship game, and see what ESPN's playoff predictor says about that. If you're a Cougar fan, don't do it. If you're a Utah fan, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're wearing blue, don't do it. It's going to ruin your day.
Our resident BYU fan, speaking of, chimed in and said he loved what both teams did this weekend. Good weekend for both teams in his opinion. Well, a resident BYU fan, maybe stay away from the predictor for now.
Just stay away from the predictor for now. The predictor, like ESPN, doesn't like you for whatever reason.
I will say this. I would think, because what have we said has been missing from BYU's resume all year long? The dominant wins, again, especially against quality opponents. TCU is a quality opponent. They had a dominant win. So I would think that would help them in the committee's eyes this week, but we shall see tomorrow night.
I'm just going to tell you, all right? Resident BYU fan, plug your ears for a second. If you go through the scenarios available on this playoff predictor and you say BYU beats Cincinnati, which is it's a decently tough road game. I think the Cougs are a bad matchup for the Bearcats. And then they beat UCF. They have a 92% chance, according to ESPN, to beat UCF anyway. But then you click no on will BYU win its conference championship game. Their playoff probability goes down to 30%. That is not encouraging if you're a BYU fan. And again, these things, these tools, these are gadgets for us to play with and have something to talk about on Sports Talk Radio. But I'm putting in 2 more wins for Utah. You beat Kansas State. You beat Kansas because obviously you have to. And then there's the option, will Utah win its conference championship game? Yes, no, or doesn't make it to the game. You click doesn't make the game, and Utah's got a 50% chance of making the playoff. So
that's still really good.
According to the playoff predictor, this team has a better chance of making the college football playoff without playing in the conference championship game than if they go to the conference championship game and lose. Obviously, if you win the conference championship game, you're 100% in the playoff. You're the Big 12 champion. That's an automatic qualifier, yada, yada, yada. And it actually gives you a 55% chance of hosting a first-round playoff game. And that, my friends, would blow the roof off of the place. And I'm talking about this place because Rice Eccles doesn't have a roof. But you know what I mean. We'll play with this. We'll continue to mess around with all this stuff. The prevailing point is that Utah is playing the kind of football right now that they need to play in order to make the case. Kansas State's a tough one, and there's a lot of storylines going into this game that will flesh out for the rest of the week, but there's going to be, I think, an emotional weight on this Kansas State game that we have not seen this season since Texas Tech. I'll tell you why as the show progresses. Sean O'Connell Show today and every day is brought to you by our friends over at Big Willie's Sports Bar. Craft food, craft cocktails, cold beers on draft, rare bourbons, outlaw distillery partnerships where they have special releases and all this stuff. It really is a wonderful place to take in any sports, to grab a bite to eat. Even if you don't drink alcohol, just go on, sit down, grab a soft drink, indulge in the great food, shoot some pool, have a little bit of fun. And as always, tell them OC sent you at 1717 South Main for Big Willie's. Ari Temkin joins us to talk about another crazy weekend in the Big 12 Conference. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Every Monday, we check in with Ari Temkin, Big 12 insider. Big 12 today on TuneIn Radio. He joins us again today. Ari, welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm great, OC. How are you, buddy?
Doing awesome. Well, it's always more fun to talk about a Utah football win here on the home of the Utes. And it was 55-28 over Baylor, who had a lot of success putting up yards, but not a lot of success putting up points. How do you digest the defensive performance from this Utah football team? Because they bent but didn't necessarily break.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, this was exactly what we expected from Baylor because this is pretty much what they've been all year. And, though they only gave up 3 points to UCF, you kind of figured, that would be the anomaly, and I think this validates that. I think the stat was that there are 7 games that Baylor's played where the opposition has scored the most points that they've scored all season against Baylor's defense. So, to focus, as you just pointed out, on the Utah defense, and I think, this was the number one passing offense in the Big 12. To have the interceptions, the 2 interceptions off Sawyer Robertson was huge. And yeah, the biggest standout from this game was Bird Ficklin and the fact that Utah and BYU both have true freshman quarterbacks that have put some ridiculous tape together already named Bird and Bear. How crazy is that?
Oh, yeah. One, I think, is the actual given name, and the other is just a nickname, if that makes a difference. But
right.
I don't know if it does.
And guess which one is which? Guess which one is
yeah.
which?
And flip a coin if you could figure out which one is which, ladies and gentlemen. Which one is least likely to be the actual birth certificate name? So, how do you manage that? If you're Kyle Whittingham, 2 games left, potentially 2 regular season games left in his career, and it's not a quarterback controversy by any stretch of the imagination, but he has been a far more transparent talking about Devin Dampier's health than he was with Cam Rising ever, in saying, look, this guy's toughing it out. He's less than 100%. He has hinted at the fact that, Devin doesn't practice. He's not full go in practice, at least, in any given week. And you've got this young fella champing at the bit. And when you have given him a start, he looked pretty darn good. And obviously his legs are a huge weapon. So how should that be managed in the Ari Temkin world?
Yeah, it's the question, right? And, you look at these next 2 games, I think there's a pretty good shot for Utah to finish 10-2 with games against Kansas State, who had to squeak by Oklahoma State, and a Kansas team in the last game of the regular season that might be stuck on 5 wins. And I don't think that they've just got the dudes up front on defense to stop anything that Utah wants to do. K-State might, but still, I'm pretty optimistic on Utah going 10-2. And I think, as a head coach in college football, OC, and you know this, you got to manage the both here and the now while also having your sights on the future. And that's a really difficult thing to manage, I think. And that is what Kyle Whittingham is forced to manage right now, because he looks ahead, he sees the potential to go 10-2, and he sees the potential to play in a playoff game regardless of the Big 12 championship situation. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think a 10-2 Utah team that does not go to the Big 12 championship might get a bid to the college football playoff over a 10-2 BYU team that loses in the Big 12 championship, despite that head-to-head win for Utah. It just feels like Utah's trending up, and I can't wait to see how these rankings, come out. But I have a feeling that we're going to see, with losses to Alabama and Texas, right there, that cusp of 10-11, that we'll see, some of those teams cluster together at 10, 11, 12, and I think Utah and BYU will be a part of that. So how do you manage that? I think what he's doing is probably the right way to go. You want to be in blowouts and then give an opportunity for Bird to fly a little bit. And yeah, you've got to manage the Dampier situation, because long term, if you're going to do any damage in the playoff, you need Dampier to be fully healthy. So I think that's a huge part of this is, picking spots, knowing that Bird is such a weapon. And the biggest thing here is it might attract more of the defensive attention to a degree, but they still can't stop it. At the end of the day, Utah's got a NFL offensive line up front, and some of these holes, it's just anybody can run through them, especially a guy like Bird that has the speed that he has. So, yeah, sure, it's signaling to the defense to a degree what you're going to be doing, but Utah does that anyways and still wins up front.
So now we're looking at a Kansas State team, as you mentioned, who just had to squeak by what we would probably consider to be inferior competition. And Kansas State is one of those teams that at the beginning of this year, they were among the 6 or 7 mentioned as potential conference championship contenders. They've fallen out of that conversation as Baylor had even before Utah hung 55 points on them. But it's a Kansas State team that's dangerous-ish, or has at least the talent to be dangerous if they show up and play their best football. And I think that there's going to be a lot of like extraneous storylines at this Rice-Eccles matchup on Saturday. It's 2:00. It's senior day. They'll probably honor a couple of underclassmen who are more than likely to head off to the NFL draft as well. And the big one, as you're well aware, is that it could be Kyle Whittingham's last home game at Rice-Eccles Stadium. So how do you avoid the distraction and make sure that you don't let Kansas State bite you?
Yeah, first things first, if I were to pick which one of these last two I would want at home and which one I would on the road, if I needed one to be at home and one on the road, this is how I would draw it out. I mean, playing at K-State, you know I'm a KU alum, playing at K-State much more difficult than playing at KU, even though they have the new stadium. And look, I mean, that could be a situation last game of the regular season. If Kansas doesn't get a win this weekend to clinch bowl eligibility, you're going to have a lot of nerves and angry people in the stadium the final game of the regular season. So I love that part of it, that like I would have been a little bit more concerned about this game if it were playing in Manhattan and they had Kansas at home in the regular season finale. So I think that shakes out really well in terms of the home road split. And then, yeah, I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head there. Like the fact that you've got a team that could sneak up on you, but in a spot that's not very sneaky because of all the things, the senior day, the potential for this to be Kyle's last home game as the head coach of Utah football, and all the things, the emotions that come along with that. I mean, the one thing for me in this game is, K-State is built up front on the defensive side. And, that was a strength coming into the season. Now it's been more of a strength in some games than it has been in other games. And, of these 2 games left, this is the one that probably scares me a little bit more, but not much. And look, I mean, they got 5 turnovers from Oklahoma State and still only scored 14 points. So this offense is an absolute mess for K-State. And I can't imagine it'll change much in the Utah game because of what Utah defensively can throw at Avery Johnson, who is much more of a running threat. It's funny because Avery sort of had a Bird Ficklin role a couple of years ago coming in and actually had 5 rushing touchdowns in one half against Texas Tech. The game on Saturday that Bird Ficklin had reminded me a little bit of that game for Avery Johnson. So for whatever reason, K-State just has not figured out the right way to get him balanced in terms of running and passing. And it doesn't help as well that he's had a bunch of different offensive coordinators in his time already at K-State, with Colin Klein, his first year, who went off to Texas A&M. Then they bring Connor Riley, who is on staff as the offensive line coach. He leaves after taking over for 1 year in play calling on offense and goes to the Cowboys. And so now it's another offensive coordinator who'd been on staff at Matt Wells, but I think the proof is in the output in terms of their offensive production. So, like, K-State's strength is certainly on defense. They've got some dudes up front, Stufflebean, and some linebackers that are really good, Austin Romaine. But, no, I'm not concerned. Again, with Utah's offensive front, like, it's clear that a few years ago in the Big 12, even last year, this game would have been a problem, not just because it's K-State, but because it's been a league of parity. But I think it's clear that this is not a league of parity. Like, there is clearly a hierarchy at the top. I'd put Texas Tech all by its lonesome there in Tier 1, and then BYU and Utah in Tier 2. And, I don't even think Tier 3 is even close to Tier 1 or Tier 2.
Let's talk about BYU. They had the bounce-back game that I think they needed. TCU is much like kind of the middle of the pack in this Big 12 conference. They're talented and they're capable, if you don't play your best football, of making you look bad. But BYU handled that with aplomb. They didn't really ever let this become a game or really ever let this game test them. And Bear Bachmeier continues to look unflappable, even coming off a loss. This BYU team, as we make a point that, hey, Utah's really emerged and is dominating. This BYU football team, aside from Texas Tech, they have looked so good this year that if we're talking about these tiers and if we're talking about where the Big 12 belongs in the college football playoff conversation, it's like, I mean, as a Utah fan, you're like, well, you need for Tech to show some problems or for BYU to show that potentially they're going to open a space for you in this Big 12 championship game, and I just don't see it. I don't think that Cincinnati's got anything for the Cougs, and that's the last tough test.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, again, going back to what we were just talking about, like this is not a league of parity. So even though Cincinnati is, still there towards the top with just the 2 conference losses, the times they played elite competition, it's been a struggle for them. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this week was an example of that for Cincinnati. Arizona's not even elite competition. They just, have better dudes. And that was, the reason for Arizona to win. I mean, Cincinnati earlier this year, I think the run game was really leading the way in the Big 12 overall, and it has not been as good of late. And there's probably some injuries and whatnot that's played into that. I mean, Evan Pryor hasn't been healthy. Tyree Walker's been good. But, I mean, I thought in this Arizona-Cincinnati game, it was like the best running game wins, and that in this case was Arizona's rushing attack, which is funny because, I mean, look at the teams we're talking about here at the top of the conference. OC, Tech, BYU, Utah, all of them elite running football teams. So, as much as this game has evolved and as much as teams spread out and throw the football a ton, like the leader of this conference is still going to be the best team that runs the football, as effectively as possible. And, and going back to the BYU game against TCU, I think, that was pretty evident. And it wasn't just LJ Martin. It's Bachmeier being in control. I mean, you're watching this game and you're like, yeah, this is exactly what Tech did to Utah. Utah's not a bad team. Tech is just that good. And like BYU is in the same boat where they look bad against Texas Tech, but then a week later it's like, oh yeah, that was just Texas Tech. That was all that was. But look, I mean, we know that BYU and Utah are awfully similar in some ways. They're a lot different in other ways, but like both very good defensively. BYU is just so opportunistic in the back end of their defense. Had the 2 takeaways. Their defense, one of those things that like year over year, you just weren't sure would carry over in terms of being a elite defense that would turn teams over. That doesn't tend to be a stat that tends to, stay consistent year over year. But for BYU and that Jay Hill defense, clearly there's something to it. So, I mean, that's what is saving them to a degree. Now, it didn't in this game. I'm just saying like that ultimately they're good for 1 to 2 turnovers. And that's been the issue with Josh Hoover. I mean, TCU is a humongous disappointment this season. Hoover was, I'll never forget it. TCU and Arizona State were playing, and Tim Brando kept talking about how underrated Josh Hoover was, and it was almost as if Sam Levitt could hear it. And Levitt in the fourth quarter completely demoralized Hoover. And going back now, it's like he has not been the same since that game. Like he was elite, and Brando was right. Like to that point, he was super underrated and was playing at a very high level. And the passing numbers have been there. He's averaging over 300 yards passing each game, but the turnovers are the things that have mounted. I mean, he's another 2 interceptions in this game. He's just been a turnover machine basically since that Arizona State game, and TCU's been a huge, massive disappointment. But again, credit BYU. I mean, clearly BYU and Utah, in the upper echelon of the Big 12, it's just there's been a clear separation in terms of when they try to put their rushing offense against that great elite Texas Tech defense.
Before I let you go, we have already in previous weeks discussed how insane the coaching carousel and its spin are going to be in this offseason. Yeah. Who is the Big 12 coach most likely to end up somewhere else?
As another sitting head coach?
Yes.
I don't think there's any. I mean, Kenny Dillingham affirmed his commitment to Arizona State. We've talked a lot about, he's from the area. He went to school there. I don't think Gundy is a sitting head coach in college football next year. Maybe there's a chance, he gets an opportunity, but I just don't see it, especially, he just doesn't seem to be fit for modern college football. Dave Aranda, I think, is going to lose his job, and had they even won against Utah, I'm not sure that would have changed, but certainly the loss didn't help that, and I think he'll be out. I don't see him becoming a sitting head coach next year. I could see him becoming a defensive coordinator. I mean, if somebody hired Aranda to be a head coach, I'm not sure they've been paying attention to what he's been doing. I would certainly hire him tomorrow to be my DC, but definitely not to be my head coach. So, I mean, Lance Leipold, maybe, but I still think Lance will have at least another year. But I'll say this. I mentioned my Jayhawks earlier. They got to 5 wins and had a chance to get to bowl eligibility with 4 left to play. And so if they go 0 and don't get to bowl eligibility, then I think there's a shot. All bets are off in terms of Leipold's job because, I mean, it's pretty inexcusable some of these losses they've had. Now you line up and it's like we've got Iowa State on the road, followed by Utah at home to finish out the season. I don't know that I see a win there. And so again, you had to crawl in order to try to get to 6 wins last year and you didn't. And so now you had ample opportunities to do it and you didn't. So maybe he's the one answer to this question, but I I don't see Matt Campbell. I don't see any of these other coaches leaving for, one of the bigger jobs, because we've seen over time that, like, a lot of these guys feel like they can win where they are and they don't have a need to go elsewhere.
We'll see how it all plays out. It's going to be a fascinating final couple of weeks in this Big 12 conference, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Ari, always appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're the best, OC. Take care, brother.
Ari Temkin, TuneIn Radio's Big 12 Today, an encyclopedia of Big 12 knowledge, and he's absolutely right. There is a tiered system right now in the Big 12 conference, and we've asked for this. When Utah was in the Pac-12, you asked for it. Now that they're in the Big 12, you've asked for it. Give me a conference that has an elite team or two at the top, because the parity, the everyone can beat everyone kind of thing is fun every Saturday. You don't know who's going to win these games, but it's a nightmare when you get to this time of year and it's time to talk about the college football playoff field.
Especially with the Big Ten and the SEC taking up most of the spots when it comes to the college football playoffs.
9 spots potentially.
Yeah, and like that just leaves you to have to crawl and grasp for any straw of any of your top 2 or 3 teams to prove that you deserve to be in the playoffs. Especially with the fact that the ACC might not get in, even with Georgia Tech and how they've looked, they might not get in if they lose to Duke, and that gives the Big 12 an opportunity to say, hey, we need our top 3 teams to step up, win out, and prove that they are the right teams to be in.
The tough part about this whole scenario is for BYU and for Utah, right? BYU very realistically could have one of its best seasons on record.
Yep.
Right? In the Power 5 conference, Power 4 conference, in the Big 12, beat your rival, end the season in a conference championship game. But if you don't win that conference championship game, don't take my word for it. It's the playoff predictor that is telling you, you've only got a 30% chance of getting in there. And by the way, Utah, who you beat this year, might get in over you. For Utah, same thing. You could finish out 10-2. Let's pretend this is Kyle Whittingham's final year. Power 4 conference, you finish out 10-2. The last several wins of the season after the BYU game are all dominant blowout type performances.
Right.
And then you end up in the Alamo Bowl.
That would be a real kick in the gut.
And your conference gets its one elite team, Texas Tech, into the dance. By the way, Texas Tech is going. Even if Texas Tech loses to Utah or to BYU or to whomever in a conference championship game, who else could even make it at this point? Cincinnati lost their way out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Houston are out. It's really down to Texas Tech, BYU, and Utah.
Okay, That's Texas Tech, BYU, Utah. I don't think Arizona State has a way to back itself. It's okay, so let's say Texas Tech loses to the Cougs or loses to the Utes in a conference championship game. They're still in the college football playoff.
Right. They're not going to knock them out 5 or 6 spots and say that they're the 13th best team in the country.
So there's going to be one fan base here in the state of Utah that is just devastated and crying and moaning and complaining about the fact that the rival got in. Potentially.
Yeah. And this is the thing about the college football playoffs that adds it, especially with the Big 12, is every game matters. If you slip up one time throughout the regular season, your chances plummet faster than you think. And for Utah, those 2 losses have come back to kind of bite them in the butt. Like, they need a win out, and they need some prayers and some hopes, and they just need that to happen quickly.
All right, we got to take a break here. The hot lunch is coming next. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792 on FM. Scott Mitchell, the Utah football quarterback, color analyst on the radio broadcast. He's going to join us in 5 or 6 minutes here. Hot Lunch today is brought to you by our friends at BGR and Sugar House. That's Burgers Grilled Right, 1202 Wilmington. The Wagyu Wellington burger on the menu today. Hello. Wagyu beef infused with black truffle oil, roasted mushrooms, caramelized onions, blue cheese crumbles, and the BGR Mojo sauce, which is like an improvement on fry sauce. Right in the heart of Sugar House at 1202 East Wilmington Avenue. That's Unit 120. But you'll find it in the heart of all that retail and everything, kind of adjacent to, behind-ish, the Nordstrom Rack over there. Great vibe, by the way. If you want to watch a game there, they've got TVs. They serve beer and wine if you're interested in that. But the burgers are the star of the show. BGR Burgers Grilled Right. And this Wagyu burger, this Wagyu Wellington, the patty by itself is somehow a step up from what BGR usually gives you. The Wagyu beef obviously is the fancier, slightly higher fat content, incredibly tender, incredibly juicy, and they infuse it with this black truffle oil that makes it so deeply flavorful. I think umami is the right word to describe that particular taste sensation. And then the mushrooms, the caramelized onions. Look, the only downside to this burger at all is that you're probably going to need a breath mint after, all right?
That's the only downside?
That's the only downside. Go check out the Wagyu Wellington. Tell them OC sent you, and they're going to give you 10% off your order. We're also going to be giving away a BGR gift card at the end of the show today in our topical trivia. 1202 East Wilmington Avenue in Salt Lake City, right in the heart of Sugar House, for the best burgers you can find in the hot lunch. All right, in order to stay on time here, I do want to just take a brief second. Scooby Davis.
Okay.
Suspended for the first half of the next game, which, by the way, I don't want to call attention to this. According to the Big 12 rule book, ejections for fighting are handled differently, and it's a suspension for the rest of the game. But whatever.
You know what? You're going to take a win when you can get a win.
Scooby Davis, the frustration of giving up a touchdown, we all, not all of us understand it at this level, but we get it, right?
Yeah.
The frustration layered on top of having someone jaw-jacking you right in your face when you have not had, as a unit, as a cornerbacking unit, a particularly fantastic game of stopping. Give credit to Baylor's receivers, and to Sawyer Robertson. They were just winning on some of those matchups, okay? But Scooby, you're winning the game. The game is out of hand. Baylor's not gonna. What you say is you say scoreboard. When that guy gets in your face, and then when his teammate gets in your face, you say scoreboard. And by the way, in this game, you also get to say, and I put 6 of those points up.
Exactly.
You say, when he starts jaw-jacking, you shake his hand, you say, now we're even. We both scored a touchdown today.
What do you think your former teammate DC said when he got to the sideline after that?
Well, Morgan is going to do the thing that a coach is supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to say, you can't do that, man. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why'd you let him get in your head? But he's also going to say, you're the better player here. You have won this matchup today because your team has won this matchup today. Scooby, trust me, I am not the guy that's going to shame anyone for letting the hands fly.
Yeah.
However, you are too important of a player to let your emotions take control in a crucial scenario.
Yeah.
It just
let
smacking someone when they're wearing a helmet also is just idiotic. I love what Scooby has done. I love what all of these corners have done. Don Saunders, we talked about him a lot last week. Blake Cotton, all these guys have really kind of come into their own. Without star power, without recognition on the national level. They've just quietly put in a phenomenal year where Utah is one of the top passing defenses, top pass efficiency defenses in the entire conference. Scooby, you cannot let the ants, the jackdaws, you can't let these people that are going to use their words to undermine your work. You can't let that get under your skin. You just cannot.
To the slap too, you can't do that, because if you break a finger, like the rest of the last 2 weeks are just like a struggle. that's painful, man. I've been there, done that. Broke a finger and I've gotten a finger jammed up in football. That doesn't go away in 3 days, no matter how much ice you put on it.
So that's my only, like, that was the thing that bummed me out most in this game, is that it ended up being a bad look for him individually, ended up being a bad look for this Utah defense. You know, this is a group you're not supposed to lose your cool.
Yeah.
And there wasn't reason to lose your cool necessarily.
No.
I don't know exactly what was said. Maybe it was a your mama thing. I have no idea. I don't know exactly what was said, but the scoreboard has already dictated the victor of these matchups.
Give them the 2 claps, point to the scoreboard, and be like, scoreboard. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Just I scored a tutty today. I had a pick 6 today. All right. My job is to stop people from scoring touchdowns, and I decided to score one today myself. So good job, you got this one. You're going to be riding home on the bus crying, and I'm going to be on that plane eating candy bars and very excited about the outcome.
I heard they were eating barbecue, so he wasn't enjoying a barbecue sandwich on that plane ride back.
Perfect. Anyway, we love you, Scoob, but can't do that, man. Scott Mitchell joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792 on FM, and we start hour number 2 with the Utah football legend, former quarterback, NFL veteran, color analyst on all Utah radio broadcasts, Scott Mitchell. Scott, welcome. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful today. You know, it was a good weekend. It was a great weekend, so glad to be here.
55 points put up by this University of Utah football team, 380 rushing yards behind a dominant offensive line. And, of course, you didn't need much out of the passing game. 8 of 16 for 103 yards, did get the 2 touchdowns out of it. Let's start there because we'll build towards the glory of the run game. You know, it's not the sexiest or the most conventional way of doing things, but you can still win football games in modern college football only passing for 100 yards.
Absolutely, and it's kind of how you're using the passing game, and it works best when Utah does it off of its running game. And you know, a lot of the big plays were that way. You know, a couple of those pop passes where it's kind of the fake into the line and then throw the pass to tight end over the middle, which I love that. That was really good, and that's where Utah is really efficient. And of course, the one where they're just selling out to the run, and they brought the tight end out of the backfield, so it really keys heavy run because the tight end at the line of scrimmage is blocking, and those safeties are really going to suck up in there, and then the guy squeaks out from the backfield. But really nice kind of evolution of this running game that Utah has, and a really good call in that situation. It makes it really tough for a defense because you know, you're really trying. Your feeling is if we can stop them running the football here, we're going to make them throw the football. We're going to win. But picking the right spots to throw was a nice job this last weekend.
So I've asked you some form of this question multiple times. You'll have to forgive the redundancy, but Devin Dampier is less than 100% healthy, and Kyle Whittingham is like typically very secretive, but he's not being shy about it anymore, and he's been as transparent as I think we can expect him to be, saying like, yeah, you know, it's kind of day by day. We'll see how he practices. We'll make decisions based on that. And you've got a guy who's gritting it out. He's toughing it out for his team. And it's not always pretty when he's throwing the ball. It's not even pretty right now sometimes when he's running the ball. And you've got this Bird Ficklin cat, who is one of the most talented freshmen we've seen on the roster in a long time. Is this quarterback situation being managed the way that Scott Mitchell would manage it?
You know, early on in the season, it was hard because they hadn't really delved into Bird Ficklin. Like they didn't know. It's like, okay, he's it takes a lot of time to really trust a freshman, and so you have Texas Tech because clearly what I've discovered with Devin is when he's injured, he's really not good throwing the ball, and he's not good throwing the ball because he puts extra pressure on himself. He knows I can't run it, and so I got to hang in here a lot longer than I should, and by doing so, I'm pretty much going to make a bad decision. And the bad throws, the bad interceptions have come when he's not had a willingness to run, and then when he is kind of mobile in the passing game, you know, he's not running. He's just kind of scrambling out, trying to buy even more time. You know, he took a really bad sack in the game, which this kid never gets sacked ever. And it's because he's feeling extra pressure because he can't run when he's throwing. And that's a bad thing. And so I think early on it really hurt Utah because they didn't know what Bird could do. And now they've kind of, he started a game. He's played a game. He's a guy that they have ultimate trust in. And you saw that when the quarterback runs are coming up, Bird Ficklin's going to be in the game. Now he can throw it too. And, you know, they can't just key in on him being a running back, but he's a guy that really replaces that deficiency with Devin not being able to run the football. And so, it's unfortunate that this couldn't have been discovered earlier in the year, but I think it's been a good thing and will be a good thing moving forward. And hopefully Devin can get healthy, because his game is built around moving and a lot of third downs he got by running, and he's just not as capable of doing it as he was in the past.
When you're talking about all of this stuff and putting it in the context of whatever decision on quarterbacks is made, you're playing that guy, Devin, Byrd, Isaac Wilson, whoever, behind this offensive line. And with the run support of now Wayshawn Parker, who's really emerged as running back number one, and the offensive line, how much easier is it making it for not only the quarterbacks themselves, but for the coaching staff to have that kind of like release valve to say, oh my gosh, the passing game, we're trying to figure it out right now, but look what else we've got here. 380 yards in this game.
Well, I've said it before, with Byrd, I would start him if your other guy's not healthy. And he certainly proved the talent, but aside from that, you haven't been playing the greatest teams in the conference, and what a really nice opportunity for a Byrd Ficklin to gain experience and confidence against teams like Colorado and Baylor and even Cincinnati. Cincinnati was not very good, and this and these last couple of games where you really are going to gain a lot of there's not a lot of downside. You're going to win those games, and you're going to get all this experience, and you're going to get your other quarterback really healthy. If he can sit out, maybe it takes him a month to really get back. I don't think you're losing anything. And now you have an experienced Byrd Ficklin, and you can't do it now because we're too far in the season. But I said it earlier. So now you have Byrd Ficklin, who's got experience and his talent is shining. You have a healthy Devin Dampier. You go into hopefully either a Big 12 championship game or an at-large college football playoff bid, and you're a team that's like uber scary. Now you've got a limping quarterback you're trying to figure out how to get through the season with, and you've got a limited access to a very talented other quarterback, and so you're kind of about maybe 75% of what you could be if you would have maybe gone in a different direction. And again, it's all played out well because to make that decision earlier, is a scary thing because you don't know what Byrd Ficklin's going to do. Now he's shown you what he's going to do, and that decision would be easy today, but maybe harder earlier on in the season. What it's done ultimately is just given this team more power, more offensive explosion, more playmakers. Because Byrd Ficklin, man, he was special Saturday night. He was you could say maybe one of the best players on the field on Saturday night.
Scott Mitchell is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, Utah quarterbacking legend, color analyst on all the Utah radio broadcasts, which you can of course hear right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. This is going to be a really interesting afternoon game, 2:00 kickoff at Rice-Eccles Stadium against Kansas State. You're going to see a bunch of these guys for the last time in a Utah football uniform. Do you remember what was going through your head, the emotions you were feeling the last time you trotted out on Rice-Eccles grass or turf, I guess?
Well, so for me, it was my junior year, and I didn't think it would be my last trot out onto the field. I got injured in practice. One of my teammates rolled up and I tore a knee ligament, which was not good. So we had 2 games left in the year, Air Force and at BYU. And so the last game I was, in college was on the sidelines at BYU, which is in a blowout loss and not playing. So that wasn't really a fond memory. And I, it was harder for me because our coach got fired. The team was kind of in flux. Ron McBride had just been hired. I had a chance to go play professional football, and so I kind of took that opportunity as opposed to kind of staying. And I think there's been some reservation on my part. Maybe I should have stayed and just kind of finished it all out. A lot of people said, go and take your opportunity while you have it. You could get injured, all these things. and it all works out in the wash. But there is a part of me that wishes I would have stayed my senior year and kind of been at the very foundation, the beginning of the Ron McBride era.
So Spencer Fano potentially playing his last game. A bunch of guys on that offensive line, actually, maybe the whole offensive line playing their last game.
Yeah.
Lander Barton's probably playing his last home game. And I think the real question is Kyle Whittingham coaching his last home game at Rice-Eccles Stadium on Saturday?
I'm glad you asked me that question because I woke up this morning wondering that very thing. And I've been a very adamant, yes, this is his last year, but Kyle Whittingham's a football coach. Like, he doesn't know anything. He tries to be a golfer, and he tries to go on his boat, and he tries to go on vacation, but in his soul, in his who he is, he's a football coach. And I think it's hard to give up. And I think it was hard for him to give up a year ago. And I think if he looks at this, because to me, it's like, what's the future? And I think if you looked at this team next year, yeah, you're going to lose your offensive line. You're going to lose some players. I think they're still going to be really solid defensively again next year. The defense, a lot of deep, and the backups. If you've watched the backups come in and play, the backup offensive line, they're starters. So those guys will be, starting in a year from now, and I think you're still going to be solid. You're going to have some really special playmakers on offense, provided that NIL doesn't take them away. And I think he's, I think he's still juiced up about still coaching, and I think it still excites him. And whoever's the quarterback, if you have a healthy Devin Dampier or a Bird Ficklin, you're going to have a special guy that you can go a long way with a really good quarterback in this conference and in college football. And Kyle has that now. The guy that I think is in the catbird seat is Morgan Scalley. He's just like, hey, I know they've already determined I'm going to be the head coach. I'm a Utah guy from birth. I love living here. I make a lot of money being a defensive coordinator, and I'm worth every penny. I do a tremendous job with this defense. And when Kyle's done, he's done, and I step into the role. But until then, it's all good. But I would have said 100% yes, this is last year, until I woke up this morning and I'm like, that guy is going to keep coaching. And I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if Kyle just said, because I don't get a sense from him right now like he's worn out or I think he's got some juice. He's got some excitement for the game. And this season has been this has been a great football season for Utah and a great bounce back from where they've been the last couple of years. And I think they can build on this to even be better next year.
How do you tell a guy, you say he's in the catbird seat, how do you tell a guy that you've promised he's going to be the next guy to wait another year before he's the next guy?
You just keep paying him a lot of money, and I mean, it's I think it would be a really nice thing as a coach, because Morgan is paid handsomely, but it's also, he has the security, there's a lot of guys that are coordinators or fighting through that are looking for their next job, and they're going, oh man, I got to go to Utah State, or I've got to take a lateral move somewhere to take my first job and hopefully get to where I ultimately want to be. And where Morgan goes, I don't want to be anywhere other than Utah. I don't want to go off and be in an SEC school or Big Ten or whatever. I'm a homegrown guy, and I think Utah has figured that formula out. It's like, don't be a stepping stone school for people. Hire coaches that want to be here long term, and that long term stability is where you're going to find success. And I think Morgan Scalley is the absolute perfect, maybe the only candidate that Utah could get where he goes, I'm a lifer. I'm not going to go anywhere. This is where I want to be, and nothing will change.
This weekend, BYU had a big bounce-back victory. I don't know how much you were able to watch, but Bear Bachmeier continues to impress. And more importantly, BYU did not let Texas Tech beat them twice. TCU's a solid team and didn't look all that solid against the Cougs, and that I think, maintains the situation we were in last week where there are 3 Big 12 football teams firmly in the college football playoff debate and discussion. Obviously, we have to see how the tiebreakers work out and who ends up playing in Arlington and all that stuff. But what are your thoughts right now on the College Football Playoff Committee and how they are sending a message to, or what message they are sending to the Big 12 Conference with the last 2 rankings?
I think it's going to be which conference, which teams really deserve to be in with 2 losses, and is it the SEC? You know, is Alabama that team? I don't know, because watching Alabama, they didn't really look all that good. In Oklahoma, actually, that was very impressive for Oklahoma to go into Alabama and win that game, and because that would have really improved Utah's chances had Oklahoma lost. That would have been big, but that win was huge for Oklahoma, and probably one of those you go, if you do that, you probably deserve to be in the playoffs. Alabama is still one of those teams. In the conference is still fascinating. So there's two shots, right? There's going and winning the conference championship for Utah, which is still very likely. In fact, if BYU loses at Cincinnati, they would win the tiebreaker, and of course, if Utah wins its last 2 games, then they would be in. BYU did Utah a big service because TCU actually held tiebreakers against Utah. So it eliminated essentially TCU from any consideration. But BYU's got to lose. If they don't lose, it's BYU and Texas Tech. And then how much do they weigh a conference championship loss? It's like in the short brief period of this 12-team format, they haven't really penalized teams for that. So, but then BYU would have 2 losses, Utah would have 2 losses, and then does BYU get bounced out of the playoffs, or does Utah? Because the polls, the metrics, the strength of the team, actually all of those point to Utah over BYU, except for BYU beat Utah, and that's hard to overcome that, almost impossible. But it feels like it feels like it's a tough year for Utah to get in the at-large area because of what Oklahoma. Had Oklahoma lost, I think it would be easier for Utah, and I really think the best possible scenario is to go through the conference championship game, which is basically if BYU loses one of their last 2 games, Utah would be in. And I think Utah's poised at this point to give Texas Tech a really good game and potentially win this game.
When you're looking at this this final sort of opportunity to come out, show out for the fans, what do you expect against Kansas State on Saturday?
I think it'll be a lot of what it's been. Oh boy, it's one of those things where if you get on Kansas State early, I think it's a game where they just go, yeah, we're going to get on an airplane and go back home, similar to like Colorado. I don't know that there's a whole lot for Kansas State to play for. Avery Johnson is an up and down quarterback. He's the kind of quarterback that I think Utah would like to play right now. We'll kind of see how that goes. He's the guy that, probably runs the ball more than throws it better. But it's, they're not a great team. They're just an average team. They're really kind of what Utah's been seeing in the Colorados, the Baylors, even Cincinnati, some of those teams lately where they're kind of the middle-ish to lower part of the conference. So certainly will be a big, it'll be a big day. And typically in those days, Utah plays well. I just think you're going to see more of what you've seen from this Utah team. I think they're excited. I think they're committed to seeing out this season, and I think they want to go into the playoffs. They want to end this right, and so you're going to see Utah play really hard. And I have a hard time seeing them. This game even being close and them losing.
Scott, it's always a great pleasure. I will see you up there on Saturday.
All right, look forward to it. Thanks, Sean.
Scott Mitchell. You can hear him hosting the Down and Dirty right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM immediately preceding the Sean O'Connell Show. And, of course, he will be on the broadcast Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock kick. I think ESPN 2 is airing the game is what we've decided. So forecast right now looks like sunny with about 50-degree weather. Guys, there's a good chance, if that holds, that you had nearly ideal weather for all the games this year. Even the night games in November or late October, unseasonably warm. Let's just appreciate that for a second, shall we? All right, got to take a quick one here. We come back with the Daily Dump. But before we do, a reminder to all of you out there that are driving to get to work, that are driving the kids to school, that are driving because that's what you do. That's how we get around in America. Weather is coming. It's been a beautiful fall so far, but we're going to have snow. We're going to have rain. We're going to have ice. We're going to have wet, nasty roads, and you're going to need tires that are in good shape to make sure your car stays on the road. You're also going to need to make sure that your brakes are looking good, that your fluids are filled up. Big O Tires has multiple locations up and down the Wasatch Front, and they can take care of all of it. Right now, special coupons if you go to bigotires.com for service savings. You need to go get the oil change. You need to get the fluids checked out. $10 to $30 off. There's a free brake inspection going on right now, and the Black Friday sale coming up. Buy 3 tires, get 1 free. That's select in-stock Big O branded tires with the free ProTech Plus warranty included. They've also got instant and rebate savings on national brand tires. The selection is fully stocked. Anything you could possibly need. You drive a big truck, they've got you covered. You got a trailer, you need to haul the boat or the snowmobiles or anything else, they've got tires for that. You're driving a little smart car, a little electric vehicle, something fuel efficient, Big O Tires has you covered. When you go into one of the Wasatch Front locations, tell them that OC sent you, and keep an eye out, again, for the Black Friday sale. Buy 3, get 1 free on Big O branded tires. That's up to $120 in savings now through December 7th. Daily Dump is coming next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Any of your plumbing, your drain cleaning needs, check out Valley Plumbing in the Truck with the Duck. Daily dump here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The rumor mill spinning faster and faster in the college football coaching world to where Kenny Dillingham felt a need to reaffirm his commitment to Arizona State. Lane Kiffin keeps getting asked about open jobs and is telling everyone, no, I love Ole Miss. Let's not forget, by the way, that some of these guys are going to be coaching into January, potentially, as part of the college football playoff. So I think that changes the job market pretty significantly, especially if you want to use Lane Kiffin as an example. Right? Ole Miss is pretty firmly in control of a spot, or I should say of an opportunity to seize a spot in the college football playoff. You're going to leave that job for an unrealistic fan base in what is, for some reason, perceived as a better situation because they've had national championship success in the past. Like, if you're approaching $10 million a year like he is, and he's probably going to get another raise, and you're in the hunt for an SEC championship, for a college football playoff spot, and if you're in the college football playoff, you are in the hunt for a national championship, why would you leave where you are at with all of that stuff to go to a place where right now they don't have that level of player, they don't have that level of consistency in the program? I mean, the math, I guess, is what matters most. Who's paying you the most? But it's also math on how quickly your decisions are followed, how quickly your decisions are supported, what your NIL situation looks like. Like, make no mistake, if you're Joey McGuire, there are 35 jobs that are more prestigious in college football than Texas Tech is. There just are. There are not 35 jobs where you have better pipelines of revenue, of NIL opportunity. Like, in that case, we're talking about like maybe 10 jobs. And it might not even be 10. Ohio State's got you covered there, right? Oregon's got you covered there. I'm sure that Michigan does as well. But we have to get used to the idea that being a blue blood or a borderline blue blood program in college football isn't all that it's about right now, isn't all that it takes. And by the way, Utah is, in a lot of people's minds, on the opposite side of this conversation, where Utah is a nationally respected program with plenty of success, but the question for Utah is, can you sustain it based on NIL competition, based on the fact that, like, when you keep developing these guys and identifying these talented young freshmen, do you know how much you're going to have to pay to keep J.J. Buchanan and to keep Mana Carvalho and to keep Bird Ficklin and to keep Pupu Sepulona? Do you know what it's going to look like for those guys in January in that transfer portal window? Like, if you're at Texas Tech, you don't have to stress. If you're at Ohio State, if you're at Michigan, if you're at wherever, maybe if you're at Florida, you don't have to stress, and maybe that's why everyone's saying, hey, Lane, this is a better deal. This is a better job. But I'm not convinced that anything is lacking at Ole Miss right now. And if it is, will it stay that way? Or will a bunch of people that are now excited about the level of competition you're able to put this team in will be like, all right, I think that's the saving grace for Utah. I think a lot of the questions about, oh my gosh, can you compete in NIL, were surrounding a situation where NIL wasn't working out because you had committed a bunch of money to Cam Rising and to guys that weren't able to stay on the field, right? And it made some of the potential donors or the potential boosters like, hold on a minute. If I'm funneling these assets into this project and that project ends up not being like even something I get to enjoy, because there's no return on investment, as we've talked about plenty. There's no ROI in a meaningful way. But the return on investment is like your alma mater ends up being great and enjoyable and fun to watch. That's all that most of these people, most of these businesses are getting out of it. I don't know. I think that as the college coaching carousel spins and the rumor mill speeds up, and I'm seeing on my timeline today, well, what about if Kyle moves on? Is Morgan Scalley the right guy? What are we doing? Let it play out, and don't assume that the job you think is the best job, because I promise you that there were 50 coaches out there who were just like, Texas Tech, yikes. And then Cody Campbell walks in, and all of a sudden, oh, Texas Tech, that's fun. It's not a bad little job if you can get it.
I mean, yeah, like Joey McGuire, a ton of success at the high school level, but I think that speaks to where the program was at the time. They had to go to a guy at the high school ranks to be their next head coach, and he's definitely proven his worth at this higher level. But if they had Cody Campbell in place and the money that Cody Campbell brings to him in place, 5 years before that, they probably wouldn't have went to the high school ranks, right?
Well, he was
to
at
hire
Baylor.
the coach. Or was he Baylor before? My bad.
He went from the high
That's
school.
right.
ranks
He was an assistant coach at Baylor
be
for
an
a little bit,
assistant at
right?
Baylor, yes.
I forget that part. That's my bad. But they might have been able, with that kind of money, they might have been able to get a bigger name if Cody Campbell and his money were in place at that time. And anyway, it's worked out for them. But I think just to underscore your point that, hey, who knows, a year from now, if the program, whatever program you can think of that's not that big a deal in the Power Four, all of a sudden is a major player in the Power Four, like Texas Tech was, and they may hire a coach that's available to them now, but then a year from now, that coach now has all the resources in the world, just like what happened at Texas Tech.
The coaching carousel, as I have said now every day for the last 2 weeks, is going to be as fascinating, more intense as it ever has been in college football. And you need to prepare yourself for some unconventional moves or decisions, like perhaps I'd rather be at, not Florida. Florida used to be Florida was the job that Urban Meyer chose over Notre Dame, which was his dream job, because it was a place that you could go compete instantly for national championships. That might still be true at Florida, but they can't just say, hey, tradition, hey, the swamp, hey, this. They have to also say, we have these donors who are ready to provide you with what you need. Also in the Daily Dump today, we have to bow down. We have to thank. We have to, in the future especially, we have to defer to the wisdom of Gordy Chiesa. He told us from the very beginning that this Utah Jazz team was going to be a lot more interesting and a lot better than you gave it credit for. They're still below 500. They've only won 5 games on the season, but they've won 5 out of 13, and there were a lot of people who thought that this would be like a 15 to 19 win team in the NBA this year, somewhat by design, but double overtime victory over the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz continue to be interesting and at least a little bit fun. And Lauri Markkanen is right now a bona fide all-star candidate. 47 points in this double overtime game. He's averaging 30 a game right now. The only other Jazz man to do that through the first 13 games multiple times in his career, Adrian Dantley. He did it 3 times.
That's
hot take. Lauri Markkanen better than Karl Malone.
That's incredible company. Adrian Dantley, not only Hall of Famer, but guy could score it. All right. So if you're scoring at the multiple time, or maybe just one time, but he did win the scoring title at least once in his career, Adrian Dantley, with the Jazz, and he was around the top 5 scorers of the league just almost his entire career. particularly with the Jazz and elsewhere though too. So it's that's quite the company for Lauri Markkanen to be in.
2 scoring titles.
Two
for
scoring
Adrian
titles.
Dantley. 1980-81 and everyone's favorite year, 1983-84 season.
Yeah. The first year the Jazz franchise had made the playoffs, that 84 season.
The Deshaun O'Connell birth year season.
Oh
is
yeah,
probably why.
Are you the reason why the Jazz had the 20 years of success and more than that with the few gaps of not making the playoffs?
It would make a lot of sense why
Is
a
that
random
you?
child in Minnesota, born in Minnesota, would have had an effect on the Utah Jazz.
Destined to move to Utah as a
Yes.
young lad.
Karmic energy pouring towards them.
Wow, I didn't know you brought all that success with you
You're welcome.
from Minnesota.
You're welcome, everybody.
Did you see the Draymond Green story, by the way? I feel like that's Daily Dump worthy.
I had not seen this until you pointed it out in the pre-show.
So you'll have to look up the video. The guy, you can't hear the guy taunting in the video, but the quotes in the ESPN story, the guy they actually interview the fan. His name's Sam Green, who Draymond got into it with, and he told ESPN, this is what I said. So for those that missed it, I believe this was last night, if not, it's sometime over the weekend, if not last night. Warriors are playing the Pelicans. Huge historic rivalry. No, they're playing the Pelicans. Draymond got off to a terrible start offensively and missing a lot of point-blank layups in particular. So this very clever fan sitting front row in a Pelicans polo starts yelling Angel Reese whenever he touches the ball. Because unfortunately, even though she's had an outstanding start to her WNBA career, she's also known for missing the point-blank layups, getting her own rebound, and finishing the play eventually. And that's kind of what Draymond Green was doing at the start of this game. So he's yelling, Angel Reese, whenever he touches the ball. And it got to a point where Draymond was like, okay, I got to go talk to this guy. He gets within a couple inches of this guy's face. Thankfully, nothing terrible happens. They just exchange words. And the quote after the game from Draymond to the media is, it was funny at first, but then you can't, and I'm paraphrasing, but you can't call me a woman. I'm a grown man with a family. Like, come on, dude. He's clever heckling. You can get over it.
And by the way, maybe what they were saying is you're just Angel Reese is a talented basketball player. Maybe it was a compliment.
Why you gotta disrespect Angel Reese like that, Draymond? Why wouldn't you want to be called that? No,
what I want from the rest of this season is
especially here in Utah at the Delta Center.
I just find like random women to call Draymond Green.
Yeah, not even WNBA players, right? Just
anyone. 877-353-0700. The Helen Mirren.
Famous or otherwise.
Famous or otherwise.
Maybe just this girl names.
Well, hopefully famous so that people understand that it's funny. Because if you just like shout your mom's name at him, he's going to be like, "What? Who's that?
What are we doing?"
877-353-0700.
But he'll get it, OC. He'll know what's going on if you shout your mom's name.
The best name to shout at Draymond Green next time you see him at the Delta Center. I would love for this to become a league-wide thing because you reap what you sow, all right? And Draymond has been an antagonist, a troll, a problem, and sometimes a complete lunatic in NBA basketball and on NBA basketball floors for the entirety of his career. If you are Steph Curry, no one's heckling Steph Curry like this. Even opposing fans are just like, I kind of like that Steph Curry guy. If you salt everybody, they're going to salt you back. That's just how it is. He's got to know this better than anyone. So this Sam Green guy, okay, New Orleans fan, he was wearing a polo shirt, which is heckleable offense, by the way.
Yeah, it had the Pelicans logo on it, at least. He was repping.
And he kept calling him Angel Reese.
So Did you see?
He kept calling me a woman, Draymond Green told reporters after the game. He's calling me a woman's name. It's a good joke at first, but you can't keep calling me a woman. I got 4 kids, 1 on the way. You can't keep calling me a woman. No, you can, Draymond.
What is the big slight of that, by the way?
What you can't do is you can't use abusive language. You can't use, like, excessive profanity. You can't use racial epithets. But this is the cleverest heckling there is. Oh, you keep missing layups and getting your own rebound? Angel Reese has literally trademarked the term me-bound because people were using it to insult her. She's like, "Oh, that's cool. I can put that on merch."
She's getting herself. She's taking the high road and making herself putting herself in on the joke, which is amazing. That's Draymond needs to learn how to do that, or he needs to learn to just play through it. But that's obviously not going to happen.
This is, by the way, the ultimate victory for a fan. This is
absolutely
when you can get the player to actually react, and you didn't do anything offensive. You didn't do anything coloring outside the lines. All you did was come up with something that was so clever and so annoying that the player himself, and one of the ultimate trolls of the NBA, to get so bothered that he has to come up and approach you. And then he's, by the way, Draymond, after he's like, "Oh, yeah, he stopped talking when I walked in." Okay, Draymond. Of
course he did. You're 240, 50, 60 pounds chiseled.
You're a professional athlete who's 6'7".
He knows you. He knows you could kick his ass. That's why he's not going to say anything.
By the way, like, just say Angel Reese one more time and force Draymond Green to make a decision.
Help the Pelicans out. Get him thrown out of the game.
Draymond Green to make a decision there.
Oh man.
877-353-0700. Marie Osmond. Just start throwing random stuff at him.
Here in Salt Lake City at the Delta Center, you got to not only do famous women, you got to yell the names of famous women who are celebrities in this state. How about that?
Utah women.
Marie Osmond.
What was it? Emma Smith? Was that her name?
Yeah.
He might not know who that is.
Emma Smith.
He might not understand that reference.
He's like, is that the owner's wife?
Katherine Heigl.
Catherine Heigl.
She owns a house here or something.
Lindsey Vonn.
You know what I mean? Peekaboo Street. She probably won a medal here at some point.
And if you want to go real deep cuts, and if you're a member of the LDS Church, do famous women general authorities.
Perfect.
So yell those names at him just to confuse the heck out of him.
Just throw out
the General Relief Society president. Just throw out her name. The General Primary President. Throw her name out there.
What I want is I want Angel Reese's comments on this.
Yeah,
on this story.
I want her to say, "Hold on, why is that an insult?"
Angel Reese, your name was such an offensive insult that Draymond Green almost punched a fan. She'd be like, "Wait, what? Why?" If I was on a basketball floor and someone called me Angel Reese, that's a compliment. She's a much better basketball player than me. If you're Draymond Green, you hate it. But this is an absolute coup. It is a victory. It is chef's kiss perfect for a fan. You didn't have to say anything that is like going to get you kicked out of the stadium. It's going to get you kicked out of the arena. Your fellow fans can't even boo you and be like, "Hey, man, calm down. That's a little bit out of line." All you're doing is saying, "Angel Reese."
Yeah.
Somebody get Angel Reese a ticket right next to this guy the next time the Warriors are in town and have them both stand up and call Draymond Green Angel Reese. I want every fan base in the world, like when you go to Detroit, it better be, I don't know, the Temptations. What's the female equivalent of, like, the Motown act, the women, all right? The most famous female whatever from every city. That's what we're calling Draymond Green from now on.
I think you nailed it too. The whole arena chant is also a great way to do it. Just don't even let him not hear it.
5202 Taylor Frankie Paul. I know that's someone from the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
That's a good poll too from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. That's also a great place to poll.
1624 says, "Could someone please call Draymond Green Mother Teresa?" No, that's too offensive to Mother Teresa. Okay, she's a literal saint in the Catholic Church. All right. Steve Carell yelling Kelly Clarkson on the Jumbotron. Perfect. Exactly. Just throw a bunch of random women at him. And you know what? Make it like pretty obscure. Gwyneth Paltrow. He's like, what? Gwyneth Paltrow? Why? Make him think about it. Perfect. 877-353-0700. Keep
Utah tie. Gwyneth Paltrow, at least with a certain court case.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The skiing accident, right?
Yeah.
Wow, way to pull a deep cut there, James. This is going to be when do the Warriors come anytime soon to the Delta Center?
I'm not sure what date it is.
They
definitely play here. Every Western Conference team plays at each other's arena at least once.
I need to know if anyone in the Utah Jazz organization is listening right now, asking for a friend, wink wink, if I shout random women's names from the press seats, will I lose my credential?
Just you know what you need to do? You need to shout it from the tunnel away from the press seats and just put your credential inside your shirt so you just look like a regular fan. That's what you got to do.
That might be the only way to pull this off. Oh my gosh. March 9th. We're going out there, okay? Here's what we're going to do.
Should we get some merch made? Yeah.
We're going to print a bunch of T-shirts that have Draymond's face.
We're going to hand them out before the game. How about that?
It'll be Draymond's face. It'll say Angel Reese in bold block letters. It'll say Taylor Swift. It'll say Billie Eilish. It'll say anyone.
Yeah.
And we're wearing those to the game. It's Jazz purple, okay? So it looks like it's a Jazz shirt.
Purple is back, absolutely.
But it's Draymond Green's face with a famous woman's name instead. March 9th, okay? That's plenty of time. Supply chain folks, text us. Let's get these things rolling. 877-353-0700. All right. Wow, we used it a lot. We used a lot of time on that, but I'm really glad. I'm really glad we did. We'll double up. Lots left to get to. Utah, big victory over the weekend. But guess what? BYU had a great game as well. What does that mean for the Utes? We'll talk about it next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Guys, I know people don't want to hear it all the time or anytime on the home of the Utes. Utes had an awesome game this weekend, 55-28, big victory over Baylor to stay hot, to continue to build the resume. Kyle Whittingham in the postgame or the Monday presser, he said, look, it's not about style points for me. I'm not trying to humiliate anyone or run up the score, but against passing teams, you got to keep scoring while you can. That's absolutely true. But also the perception in college football now from an opposing sideline, if you do run up the score when you're in Utah's position or you're in BYU's position or you're in Alabama's position or whatever, I don't think coaches get mad at each other the same way, because it's like, well, I kind of get it. If I'm in your situation, right? So let's just flesh this out. Kansas State comes into Rice Eccles on Saturday, and the score at halftime is 30-13 in favor of Utah. Utah's going to come out in the second half, and they're going to try to keep pouring it on. Now, you get into the fourth quarter, and let's say it's 39-13 at that point. Should Utah pull the starters and call it good? Well, maybe you can do that because it's a day game, and the country's actually going to have voters watching. The College Football Playoff Committee is not going to have to go back and do the tape study, right? Maybe in that game it's okay. When you're playing at night and you're not sure how many people are actually watching your games and things like that, your box score better look pretty damn good. And an opposing coach, an opposing staff, an opposing athletic department has to understand the situation that anyone who's 4 through 16 is in right now, where you're trying to build a case for yourself, and that might require some style points. Kyle Whittingham won't call it that, but this Utah football team needs to score 40-plus points in these next two games. Got to get the wins first, but go ahead and just mash if you can.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the defense has got to continue to do their part and make sure that they're blowouts with those 40-point wins, which I know you were
and that's
you were
why,
implying
right?
that with what you said.
28 points scored by Baylor. Like Baylor, Ari Temkin mentioned this. Baylor does that to opposing teams. Baylor gives you your worst defensive performance because you're playing 7-on-7 most of the game.
That good of a passing game, yeah.
They've got a great passing game. They got a good quarterback with a good knowledge of the system and chemistry with his wide receivers. They've got an excellent receiving core, great athletes. The offensive line does a better job than we give them credit for. I really thought I thought Utah's pass rush was going to get home more often in this game. I wanted to see John Henry Daly kind of keep pace with David Bailey at Texas Tech, because you knew he didn't have those opportunities against Cincinnati. Sorsby gets the ball out so dang quickly, and he's so elusive, and they don't give up sacks. Cincinnati doesn't. I was like, okay, well, this will be an opportunity against Baylor to maybe get a sack and a half, 2 sacks in this game, and stay on pace with David Bailey. And right now, that's not the case. But those, again, these are the little minute criticisms that I don't think ultimately are going to matter, but could potentially when you get down to tiebreakers and at-large bids and things like that. Utah's got to keep scoring points, and the defense has to do a better job. Like this game, if you scored 38 points or 39 points or 40 points in this game against Baylor, it doesn't look like a blowout. 55 is a blowout no matter what. So go ahead and do it. If Utah only scores their average on the year against Baylor, it's 41-28. And now you're like, okay, it's a 2-score game. But it's such a weird thing to say, by the way. Utah's not only got to win, they got to win these blowouts. BYU this weekend had an excellent game themselves. And I think you could make an argument against even better competition than what Utah faced. I think at least TCU is a better team than Baylor is. Built a little bit differently. And my questions about BYU following a loss to Texas Tech were about what this week would look like. would Bear Bachmeier have a seed of doubt planted in his mind by that Texas Tech defense that is so stifling and so obnoxious to go against, and apparently excellent at talking trash? If Devin Dampier and what he told us is true, if you don't remember that conversation, by the way, you can find it. It's in the archive at ESPN700sports.com. But Devin mentioned to us that Texas Tech's trash talk was like the opposite world, where they would give you a patronizing, "Hey, good job, kid."
Yeah, when they made a good play on them, right?
When the Red Raiders would make a play, they would give you the patronizing, "Hey, good try."
Yeah.
Which, by the way, would mess with me so badly. Bear Bachmeier showed us in this bounce back game that he is just that dude. 23 of 33, 296 yards through the air, 10 rushes for 59 yards, another touchdown. L.J. Martin looked better in this game than he did against Texas Tech, although I still think not 100% himself, not 100% healthy. And 44-13 is the final score as BYU bounces back from its loss with a really complete performance. Defense played incredibly well. Offense chugs along. And the special teams that you saw some gaffes against Texas Tech, because that's what they do. They just force you to make mistakes. I mean, this was a huge bounce-back thing for BYU. This was a massive moment in not only their season, but in Utah's season. Now, Cincinnati is a higher-ranked team than TCU. Cincinnati is better in a lot of ways than TCU is, but I think Cincinnati, this game being at home for them, I guess, factors in somewhat. Cincinnati, I think, has nothing for the BYU Cougars. I mean, we watched what they're bad at. We watched what they're good at against the Utes. I just don't think Cincinnati's got anything that's going to push this BYU team out of its control position in the Big 12 championship race. Now, that is the whole reason for me to talk about BYU today. As a Utah fan, you can sit back and you know the hierarchy of needs, right? Everyone's familiar with that, Maslow, the pyramid.
Shout out to Maz.
The hierarchy of needs, right? You got to have food and shelter, water.
Yeah.
Basically at the bottom, like, okay, what else do you need? Well, you probably need companionship, love, support. Okay, right? You need goals that you can achieve. At the top of that pyramid, that self-actualization thing, like spirituality, all that, that's up for debate. But we all know that the base of this food pyramid, or the needs pyramid for this University of Utah, is you have to win your games. Then the next step up is that you probably have to win your games convincingly in some style points in order to keep this committee feeling the way that they already feel about you. And then a little bit higher up on that pyramid, you probably had this thing where you're like, well, and also I would really like for BYU to stub its toe. I don't think you're going to get that.
Yeah, before the conference championship game.
Before the conference championship game.
And it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to beat Texas Tech. Doesn't seem like anybody who would play Texas Tech again would be able to beat them.
I actually, if I'm Texas Tech, I probably look at my loss to Arizona State earlier in the year with some small perverse relief, because we've seen it in the past where if, like, you're a new money success story, it's a very strange thing to have to try to sustain it through the course of an entire year. We're putting the cart before the horse here. There's a couple regular season games left. A lot of crazy things can happen. But there were plenty of people in this Utah fan base that said, I knew BYU was fraudulent, and that Texas Tech game was the exact piece of evidence that I needed to confirm my suspicion. Texas Tech is great, BYU is stinky, and now they're going to fall apart. No, they're not. They showed us against TCU they are not the team that is going to do what they did last year. Remember BYU's season last year? You probably don't, because you were wallowing in your own misery as a Utah football fan. It's the reason Jerem Jordan, who's going to join us on the show tomorrow, when 3 weeks ago, I'm just like, hey, man, is this BYU team? Are they going to be in the conference championship game? He's like, I don't want to talk about that yet. You just got to win. Because last year, BYU started the year 8-0 and then kind of sputtered their way to the end and missed out on everything they thought they were in for.
Yeah, they ended up being the people's Big 12 champs after the Alamo Bowl win instead of the actual Big 12
which
champs.
Doesn't mean a daggum thing, right?
People's Big 12 champs / Alamo Bowl champs.
So now, like, again, to put this back in the Utah lens, if the hope was that what you saw from Texas Tech and BYU was an exposure of the weaknesses for BYU that is somehow going to undermine their success moving forward, this TCU game, I think, probably showed you that is unlikely. Can Cincinnati beat them? Yes, of course. Can UCF beat them? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
You think UCF's going to come to Provo and win that game? Probably not. So
UCF, by the way, has combined for 12 points over their last 2 weeks. One of those against the Baylor team you just saw your favorite team, if you're a Utah fan, completely dismantle. So, yeah, that's not likely.
If you want to hold out some small form of hope that Utah loses on the road to Cincinnati, okay, I will support you.
BYU
loses
don't
on
be.
the road. No.
Utah already destroyed Cincinnati. OC. Jeez.
If you want to hold out some form of hope that BYU goes on the road and stubs their toe against Cincinnati, and for whatever reason it's not the matchup I think it is, fine, great, I'm with you. That's like we would all enjoy from a Utah perspective seeing that happen. That opens the floodgates of possibilities for Utah and all these different things.
Definitely pull for that. It just doesn't feel likely.
But it can't be a thing that you're like, yeah, that seems like a strong possibility. It can't be, right? You can't actually be thinking that is how this is going to play out. And because of that, what we're talking about now is this really hard to pin down sort of general sense of what Utah football should be in the eyes of the committee. Thankfully, you are in a really good starting position. If that first ranking had come out and Utah was 16 or 17 or 18, the last 2 weeks of shows are completely different. I don't have any hope to sell you. I'm not trying to give you some oceanfront property in Arizona. I'm telling you that this committee has alerted to us in back-to-back weeks that if you do what we think you're capable of doing, you get to remain in this conversation. And then it falls on Utah. Again, this is the base of the pyramid. Now go do and go show the committee that you're capable of doing what they think you're capable of doing. And you did that. You scored 55 points. Yes, you gave up way too many yards. Like the idea that you gave up almost 600 yards of opposing offense is kind of nauseating, but at the end of the day, the only stat that matters is the one that shows on the scoreboard, and Utah comes out in convincing fashion again. So as the rest of the Big 12 picture plays itself out, and the rest of this primarily SEC picture plays itself out, you just have to look at what Utah can do here in these final two games against Kansas State and Kansas, and it's win big. And what's weird is, like, winning is cool, but winning a close game is probably not enough. So you need to root for two things. I've always been the guy that says wins are all that matter. All you can ask a team to do is get over the hump and win. And look, Texas A&M had to come from a 27-point deficit this last weekend to remain undefeated, and the committee I don't think is going to punish them for that. So maybe I'm wrong in saying you got to win big. Maybe we'll base that. I'll base my assertion of that or reassertion of that on what the committee says about Texas A&M this week in the upcoming rankings tomorrow night. But this BYU-Utah relationship, as it comes down to the wire in the final couple weeks of the season, is something that's going to be really fascinating to see how it plays out. Maybe it's actually the destiny of a Utah football team where you can have nice things, but you can't have the nicest things. You're not allowed to have a perfect season anymore. And a perfect season is you get to beat your rival, and then you get to go to the college football playoff, and hopefully you get to win a conference championship. Maybe now you can only have one of those three things. Maybe you can only have a trip to the college football playoff, but you didn't get a championship, and you didn't get to beat your rival. And if you only get to have one of those three things or zero of those three things, does it change what Kyle Whittingham's plans are in the future? Scott Mitchell joined us an hour ago and said he woke up today thinking that Kyle Whittingham is not done after this year. Said today is the first day he's felt that way. Look, there's a very real possibility that Kyle Whittingham woke up today wondering the same thing. Is this the last week I'm getting ready to coach a game at Rice-Eccles Stadium? Is this the last week that I'm getting ready to make sure my family has those front row tickets about the 45-yard line at Rice-Eccles Stadium? Is this the last time I'm going to go through this routine of riding my bicycle over to the facility and we're going to do the Ute walk and all that stuff? I mean, I have never, and most of us probably haven't, I have never been in one job for 21 years. I've never been in the same field of work for 21 years yet. I'm only 42. I wasn't doing radio when I was 21 years old. So I haven't had a job. What's the longest tenure I've ever had at any radio job was like 7 years. I've never had that long. I can't imagine what it feels like to even ponder the possibility of, hey, this is the last one. And I don't know how sentimental Kyle Whittingham is in that regard anyway. But there's got to be an emotional weight to it. I really think we talked about the kind of rising to the occasion, rising to the moment, or the failure to do so against Texas Tech with Big Noon kickoff on campus earlier this year. And then the same scenario against BYU that, again, left something to be desired. And then finally you shake that monkey off your back against Cincinnati. I think that this game, with probably the last ride for Spencer Fano, the last ride for Lander Barton, last ride for Smith Snowden, I think that you're looking at this and you're probably going, man, like the emotion of this game at Rice-Eccles Stadium as far as home games is closer to that than anything else. It's closer to that Texas Tech, like, hey, we can't let this be anything but perfect. Practice better be excellent this week.
Yeah, thankfully they're facing a much lesser opponent this time around, but the emotion might be similar for sure. And this, like you say, lesser opponent with Kansas State, that's true, but this is not necessarily a terrible team either. Like, you're going to have to this is a team, just like we said with Baylor, if you're not as sharp as you ought to be, you open the door for them to potentially upset you in this game. So they need to treat this in a similar way, even though they're not as much of a quality as Texas Tech.
And I know that I'm not telling you people anything you haven't already thought about or heard yourself or experienced before, but the last home game in somebody's career is impactful in a lot of different ways because it causes you early in your life, right? You're being reflective in this scenario where it's like, oh man, this has been, for Kyle Whittingham, it's been 21 years. For whoever else, it's been 3 or 4 years, but the sample size of your life is a lot smaller when you're in college, right? It's still a good percentage of your young life that you've put all this work into. And there's a bunch of dudes who have gone through a lot that might be doing it at Rice-Eccles Stadium for the last time. And still, I think that my eyes, right, are going to be in that pregame scenario, in that, wait, who's in the stands? How many people are on the sideline? I'm going to be watching to see if anything's different than a regular fall Saturday. I'm going to be reading the tea leaves in the most conspiratorial, ridiculous way. I will spare most of you any commentary on it until at least we come back on air. I won't be like tweeting it out and stuff like that, but it's something I'm going to be looking for. Is that a tear tracing down Kyle Whittingham's cheek in the pregame warmups? He doesn't do that usually.
Is that all of Kyle's family in the stands?
Is that everyone with the last name Whittingham that has ever walked the planet Earth? Right?
All of his living relatives in the stands? Oh, interesting. Make note of that. Yeah.
I mean, there's just a bunch of people like.
Conversely, if there's a lot of scallies in the stands because it's would that signal that hey,
No.
he's taking over next year?
Doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Okay. Just checking. What about a lot of Hill family? Jay Hill's family's randomly in the games. That mean he's coming back to Utah?
That would be very interesting. That's something I probably would tweet about. Like, wait a second, guys.
Jay Hill's not here, but all of his family is here.
Or what if Jay Hill is there?
Oh.
Why is he here?
Defensive coordinator next year? We just upset all. We're on Cougar board now with that.
And by the way, right? The reason I'm even fleshing this out and just rambling on, you are talking about a Utah football team that has to experience whatever emotion comes with this, right? And then they got to go play a game that it's not good enough just to win. You have to win by 3 scores. You can't beat Kansas State by 10 points unless it's like 10-0 and your defense gives up absolutely nothing. But you have to show the country, you have to show the committee, you have to show the world that those things that happened to us in the losses, those were flukes, those were freakish. I so desperately want for Utah to get into a rematch with Texas Tech. I'm going to say something blasphemous right here. I would rather Utah get a shot at Texas Tech in the conference championship game than just be able to back into the college football playoff.
Oh, wow.
I would rather have that. I would rather,
go earn it, right? Yeah.
I would rather have Utah earn its way in to the college football playoff than get the bid just by being, good in a timely fashion.
They're great. They're great in the S&P Plus. Yeah. They, by the way, still top 10 in S&P Plus even after all those yards they gave up to Baylor. Like they moved down 1 spot.
Yes.
So the advanced analytics still love Utah.
The nice thing about advanced analytics is that they understand numbers and the distribution, how numbers get spread out over the course of a season. And it's just like, okay, so you had one bad day. It's not like, oh,
yeah.
They look at those numbers you added 600 yards of offense to a team that over the course of 10 games has not given up a lot of opposing offense.
Right.
So this Utah team being in the situation that they're in, like I think, are they a better squad than Kansas State? Yes. And I think significantly so. But there are plenty of distraction-worthy things that are going to be mulling around at Rice-Echo Stadium. And this is why the leadership that Kyle Whittingham keeps talking about matters so much, and not just from the players, but the leadership from Kyle himself, from Morgan himself, because not everyone on this roster is going to be asking that same question, but everybody in the stands is going to be wondering. Hey,
that energy is going to be permeating throughout the stadium, yeah.
Like, if you're a season ticket holder, I'm going to be hammering this all week, by the way, so get annoyed in advance. If you're a season ticket holder.
Get your grievance ready for Friday.
And you're putting your 2-2s up before the fourth quarter starts, are you going to be like, this is the last time that the guy who originated this tradition in order to honor these 2 players is the guy down there on the sideline doing it? That's going to get you a little misty.
Kyle Whittingham, senior day? Question mark?
I mean, that's what I'm talking about here. And there's nothing. He's given us no definitive indication one way or another, but we have been reading between the lines now for 3 seasons. And I think I'm opposite of Scott Mitchell. And when Scott Mitchell woke up today and he said, I think Kyle Whittingham's going to keep going, I'm the opposite of that.
He drew the drapes and he looked out the window and he said, you know what? Kyle Whittingham's going to continue today. You did the same thing and went, you know what? This is the end for Kyle Whittingham.
And by the way, like, even for me, that's a kind of strange thing.
Yeah.
Not because he was, like, we weren't close when he was my coach, but just, like, the idea that there's been this very solid, definitive connection.
Stability. Yeah.
From that era of football, like, there's been this continuous vein that runs all the way through. And it is Kyle Whittingham. And you're not going to lose much of that when it's Morgan Scalley. But by definition, things have to change under Morgan Scalley, at least somewhat, right? And maybe they'll improve. Maybe they'll be even better. Maybe this team gets even better at recruiting. Maybe this team does a better job of bringing in guys that are already closer to being finished projects, and it's not as much about development and things like that. But it's such a wild prospect, and it's worth a month of shows to discuss. Like, if we were doing this thing justice, we would be flying in all the great players that have been all-conference guys, all-America guys, all-whatever guys under Kyle Whittingham to stand on that sideline if this is going to be his last game at Rice-Eccles Stadium. That is not Kyle Whittingham's way, and he probably doesn't know 100% himself if he's done after this. But if you want to send somebody out at Rice-Eccles, you better do it with a loaded stadium, a loud game, a 55-2. No, I don't want a 2 because that means you gave up a safety. A 55-3 final score.
Hey, shutout. Let's go. 55-0.
Hopefully you would like to see, right? Like a bunch of dudes that owe so much to Kyle Whittingham come back and at least tell him, thank you, coach. That's not his way. He is not going to suffer any of that.
They'll do that. That'll happen privately. Which, listen, I'm here for that too.
That'll happen in 6 years when his name goes up on the side of the stadium. Whenever, right?
Or on the field, wherever they decide to put however
statue.
They decide to honor him, and however long that takes. Yeah.
Normally, when an historic first or last happens in sports, we don't necessarily get to know. And the curiosity of wondering whether or not this will be it is absolutely killing me right now. It just is. The lack of clarity on whether or not we're seeing the end drives me insane.
Do you want to try to have that be Tyler's question at the next press conference on Monday? Or Justin, excuse me.
Have that be Justin's question.
My bad. I don't know why Tyler was in my head. Justin. Shout out to Justin.
Well, Justin, he'll ask what – Justin is great. Justin's asked some
he
form
has
of that
some
question
awesome
a bunch of times.
He has.
He's been like, hey, is this it? And he's just like, what? Come on, man.
Come on, man. I love Justin's questions because they're no holds barred, and also it's an awesome tradition to honor one of the fans like that. But, like, man, I love just how he's just like, I don't have to worry about access, man. I'm just going to ask you what's on my mind.
I mean, Kyle Whittingham, by the way, as he's making this decision, is probably sitting at some point this week with a printed out roster on his desk. And he's saying, Lander Barton is gone. Blake Cotton is gone. Dallin Bentley is gone. Michael Mokafisi, Jaron Kump, Tanoa Tongiai, they're gone. Spencer Fano is probably gone.
Probably your tackles, Lomu, too.
Lomu is probably gone as well. I mean, not quite as definitive on that one, but I would think yes. And then but while you're doing that, you're going, do I want to come back for this? But then you're also going, wait a second. Daniel Bray could be here. Bird Ficklin could be here.
Devin's got one more year of eligibility if he wins the job over Bird again next year.
And even if he doesn't win the job, if you can keep Brock Fanoy Moana, they love him. He's going to be here next year. Pupu Sepulona has shown us some good things. Carson Kaufusi is going to be healthy next year. You're looking at this stuff. You're going down. J.J. Buchanan's going to be here next year. You're looking at it and you're going like, oh, my gosh.
Wayshawn Parker, too.
This class going out is impressive, but this class that's growing with us is reason enough to stay.
Yeah.
And by the way, he was asked about it in the press conference, and he had to skirt around. But Kenan Pula, in a semifinal game, made one of the most insane interception catches that you have ever seen at any level of football, and he and his twin brother are coming to the University of Utah next year.
Oh, that's the one that they asked about in the press conference?
Go find it, James.
I hadn't had a chance to look at it.
And watch it. It is an NFL play on a high school football semifinal game field at Rice Eccles, conveniently enough, but it's effectively Odell Beckham Jr. the interception.
The interception. I'm definitely have to check.
Absolutely
that out.
Bananas. So you got all this stuff coming in.
Are coaches allowed to, if it, like in this case, it's at your home stadium, are coaches allowed to be in the stands to watch those games? Is that a recruiting violation to watch, to scout that, or
No.
no?
You can watch.
I wouldn't think so. Okay.
You can watch. You can't, like, the dumb rules, and it's the stupidest thing in the world, but the dumb rules, you can't, like, we all know he was talking about that.
Yeah.
That the question was about that, and he was talking about that. You can't mention that kid's name until that kid is signed on your roster.
Right, which is why he very cutely said, yeah, that one high school player.
Yeah. Like, when we had Beth Lanier on last week, we were able to talk about the player that she had just signed because she was signed. If
Yeah.
that was a commit who had not yet signed, we're really excited about the commitments. In general, we think that the talent that we are scouting, like, you can't, which is so
Can't
silly.
be specific.
Because think of this, James. You're a coach who now, especially in football, you now have to offer these people money, right? You have to enter into contracts with them effectively and be like, okay, you've at least in principle, not yet on paper, but you've in principle at least agreed to give this person whatever, $300,000, $500,000, $1 million. But now you can't mention their name. You know how dumb that is?
That's really dumb.
Oh, anyway, like, I just spent 37 minutes talking about something that, by the way, I'll probably spend another 37 minutes talking about tomorrow, because the uncertainty of whether or not Kyle Whittingham specifically, yes, we know with these players, but with Kyle Whittingham potentially heading into his last game, what does that add? How much does that change? He wants it to be zero. He wants there to be no distraction at all. But we live in a real world where some of that is going to factor into this game. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Baskin-Robbins hooking up our ESPN 700 listeners with ice cream cakes. Not only ice cream cakes, but the special is the ice cream cake that looks like a Thanksgiving turkey. Final score predictions for Utah-Kansas State, 877-353-0700. All week long, we'll be taking your predictions. Closest to the actual final score with the correct winner will be given a Baskin-Robbins ice cream cake. Congratulations to Cody, who predicted 55-17 win over Baylor. That was the closest to the actual final score, which ended up being 55-28, as most of you are fully aware. Congrats, Cody. You win an ice cream cake decorated and shaped to look exactly like a Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah, Cody got close. He got the right score for the Utes. And then, yeah, so shout out to Cody. You're going to get we've given the information to the Baskin-Robbins folks. They should be reaching out to you soon about how and where you can go pick up your turkey ice cream cake.
Interesting text came in. There's an argument to be made that Kyle actually never thinks about things like the final home game or last time in Rice-Eccles because he's so focused on the task at hand, and it really might not be a good thing. Kyle Whittingham is as robotic of a coach as you can be, but he's also a human being still. We have seen this. This is the whole reason why I think that the time is coming, right? Why it's starting to be. He is the elves of Rivendell, the starting to go off to the undying lands, because it's like there was a time where Kyle Whittingham would not acknowledge anything beyond the now. He didn't want to answer questions about it. He would evade them. He would be like, and he still hasn't been definitive about it, but when you talk to him during the bye week and he's focused on family just as much as he's focused on football, that's different than what Kyle Whittingham used to be. I think that's an improvement probably for him, for his lifestyle, and even for this team, but it is different than what it used to be.
Well, how about Big 12 Media Days where he said, I'm not going to, you mentioned, hey, Utah Miami season opener 2027.
He laughed.
He laughed and said, I'm not going to be around.
He laughed. I said, my proposal for that, as all of you know, is that game is for the name the U. You get to be called the U if you win.
This or this. Yeah.
You know what? The loser of that game doesn't get to use the U for the whole year. And
Miami's got to come up with a different hand signal
he
for
laughed.
a year, too. Yeah.
He was just like, oh, yeah, 20%.
Yeah, what did he say? I'm probably not going to be there. He didn't quite say I'm not going to be part of that, but he said I'm probably not going to be part of that. Like, that's a detraction from the Kyle Whittingham of the previous 20 years.
But so the text from 6754 comes with the proposition that maybe he just hasn't even entertained the thought, right? I give, with no offense, I give that the same kind of attention that when Lane Kiffin's just like, oh, the Florida job, not even thinking about it. I don't know who our opponent is next week. Come on. Your agent has already called you and said, Florida job is open, they want you, and they're going to pay you $10 million a year. Would you rather have $10 million a year from Florida, or I can use this to leverage the hell out of Ole Miss, and they're going to have to give you another raise? You've had these conversations. It's not like you're not thinking about it. It is a disservice to you and to anyone else to be like, I don't even know. Like, these people, they're complicated people with brains that can process multiple things at once. Has Kyle Whittingham thought about, is this going to be my last time at Rice-Eccles Stadium? You're damn right he has. And if he hasn't, then somebody needs to go shout into his ear, this would be the last one. If you are retiring, coach, you might want to spend an extra 10 seconds waving at the fans.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or invite a few people last minute. No, the other thing, and this is, you can tell me, someone like you who knows him much better and who has covered this program much longer than I have can tell me this is a load of crap, if that's the case. But I feel like the whole we're going to feed the media at every press conference is a sign that this guy's changed too, and that it's coming close to the end.
Yes.
Right?
Well done, James. Yes. Now, I
might be overblowing that a little bit.
That might be from Junk. Okay, that might be our guy Keeler McJunk.
Right. Shout out to Junk. New SID being like, hey, let's just be a little more media friendly this year.
Let's try to get them on our side a little bit. That could be part of it. I don't know, man. Like, it's either way. It's something that for the next. We're almost done with today. For the next 4 days, I'm going to be wondering about, talking about, bothering you with, and all that matters, right? As I talk about that, all that really matters is Utah winning this game and winning it big.
Did you see 6754? He's saying, or he or she, shout out to our listener, saying, nominating you to shout it out, OC, from the stands. This might be your last game, coach.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk up to him pregame, and I'm just going to be like, hey, this could be your last game at Rice Eccles Stadium, and just see what the react. Just see how much he hates me.
He's going to laugh, right?
No, he would be like, revoke his sideline pass. Get away from me. Why did you come talk to me? Get out of here.
Rat poison.
No, I will say this. This is actually very funny. Kyle Whittingham, when he's on the sideline during game day, I really think he might be blind to anything that is not a player or a football scenario. I can't tell you how many times I have, because you stand where you stand, right? They have like the little media box where you can stand. You can't go on the white. You can't. And like he'll turn around and stuff, and he'll kind of look.
Will you do a little wave?
He'll look at people. I don't wave, but like he'll look, and you can see that he's, and more often it's like I'm standing next to a former player that actually mattered, or I'm standing next to
someone that
that he might want to acknowledge. Nope. There is nothing. He is only focused on the game. And that I think lends itself to more of what 6754 is saying. But in any case, we got to take a final break. Spence Checketts and the driver coming up. We are going to give you a BGR Burgers Grilled Right gift card with our trivia question today. So if you want to try their Wagyu Wellington, truffle-infused burger, caramelized onions, blue cheese crumble, the Mojo sauce on a perfectly grilled patty. Whoo, mama. Mouthwater's just thinking about it. Good time to listen in the next 3 minutes because I'll be asking a question. If you answer that correctly, BGR gift card. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. 877-353-0700, a gift card to Burgers Grilled Right, BGR, in the heart of Sugar House. Go check out the burgers, the tots, the fries. Everything we've had on the menu so far is truly excellent. Tell them OC sent you, get a discount, and take your gift card in if you can win. Let's see. We only really provided one little fancy tidbit on the show today, and it's not super football related. It's actually a basketball question. We're talking about Lauri Markkanen and how Lauri Markkanen is averaging almost 31 points a game right now, and that's not common in Utah Jazz history. The only other guy to do it through 13 games, and he did it multiple times, was Adrian Dantley. And then we were talking more about Adrian Dantley. How many scoring titles did Adrian Dantley win? 877-353-0700 if you know the answer. The Drive with Spence Checketts is up next. He's here in studio. Hi, how was your weekend?
It wasn't the only interesting tidbit you dropped. What the hell is the elves of, did you say Rivendell?
Yeah.
You said Coach Witt is like the elves of Rivendell. What is that?
Heading off to the undying lands.
I don't know. You might as well be speaking Finnish. What does that mean?
You're a charlatan who doesn't believe Tolkien has created literature masterpieces for us?
You continue to speak a language that I
Lord
do not.
of the Rings.
Haven't seen 1 minute or 1 second or read one page.
Why?
Elves of Rivendell?
Why would you not?
Well, like, you know it well enough to make a Coach Witt as Elves of Rivendell analogy, okay? So maybe where you want to be is somewhere in between you over
The
here
elves.
and me over here without consuming 1 minute of it.
The elves acknowledged that despite their best efforts, the era of man was taking over Middle Earth, and that the elves, the immortals, had to leave. And so they boarded their ships for the undying lands.
This is awesome.
And Coach Witt,
I'm on the same page with you, OC. over
Coach
here.
Witt,
That's shocking, James, that you know Lord of the Rings.
It seems like is probably in a situation where, like, yeah, he could stick around, he could fight it out for,
Okay.
but like, if the time is probably now, they don't want to leave.
Did the elves realize that their time was up because of something involving the ring?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's just a guess based off of my limited knowledge. What was the ring doing that led the elves to believe it was time
I'm
to
going to let
exit?
you do the research,
I will
Spence.
not be doing
I'm
that.
going to let you do the research.
I'm a man in my late 40s. I'm not just going to pick up Lord of the Rings right
Why
now.
not?
Now-
You have no reason not to. By the way, Oscar-winning film, the final one.
No, certainly. This is one of those. I'll give you an example. This is one of those things. Like, for instance, I don't think Prince is a good artist. And I know that I'm wrong there. And I've never seen a second of Lord of the Rings, but everybody who loves Lord of the Rings is like, dude, just so you know, you are wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of like I won't watch Kill Bill.
And you're wrong, because
See?
incredible films.
Sure.
However, I call them films. It's not a big deal. What was the HBO? Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. You enjoyed Game of Thrones.
So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about.
If I just throw a little nudity into Lord of the Rings,
Yes.
you're down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, you're speaking
Cool.
my language.
All right.
So I was stubborn about Lord of the Rings, and I have a couple friends whose tastes I really respect, and a lot of my tastes align with them. And after about 3 or 4 seasons, they're like, dude, just so you know, you're wrong about this.
About Game of Thrones.
Sit down and watch Game of Thrones.
All right.
And so, long story short, I was in a relationship at the time where she didn't necessarily want to sit and watch anything other than, trash reality television.
Uh-huh.
So we would try to start a show. She'd get bored and turn on some sort of LA celebrity, whatever. So that relationship ended. And instead of my friends giving me support, like, hey, hope you're doing okay, the message was, congratulations, you get to binge watch Game of Thrones now, which I did. And it was awesome. Okay, so I kind of feel the same way about Lord of the Rings. I'm quite sure if I actually sat down and took the time to watch or read, I would find it enjoyable.
You would.
I don't know that I can carve out that amount of time at this stage of my life just to dig into Lord of the Rings. But more impressed that you're able to assert your Lord of the Rings knowledge and bring it to a football analogy. Very impressive.
Kyle Whittingham is Lord Elrond. So what is his Valinor? I think it's Hawaii. I think it's, a property with we both love Hawaii. Kyle Whittingham, that's where he takes his one vacation a year. You know what I mean? Like when he decides that he cannot stay in Middle Earth, where does he go? All questions to be answered in the near future, I think.
What about Voldemort? Who's Voldemort in this scenario?
That's a different franchise, and you know that.
That's Harry Potter.
And
I know
you're
that.
Trying to troll. These are mainstream things.
No. I'm willing to sit here behind this microphone and raise my hand and say I'm probably wrong. And I do know Voldemort is Harry Potter, but that's only because of an Office reference between Dwight and the rest of the group.
Fair enough.
Not because I have Harry Potter knowledge. All right, moving on from this. Do you believe, because I listened to you a lot today and on the way coming in, is Saturday Kyle Whittingham's final home game as Utah football's head coach?
I think that yes. I think yes. And there's a lot of reasons why I think yes. I think that when he says, I want to make sure that I'm doing not only what's best for me, but what's best for Utah football, I think he has to acknowledge that probably is the case. If we all agree, and I know that there's a small portion of the fan base who maybe disagrees with this, that Morgan Scalley is the right man to take over, I don't know that you can tell him to wait another year when the Baylor job's probably going to be open, when Oklahoma State's already open, when all these other jobs, like Morgan Scalley's getting his agent is getting phone calls now, right? So if you say, no, I'm actually going to stay another year. And also, let just put that on the shelf. I think Kyle Whittingham is going to go out 10-2 this regular season.
I agree with that.
And maybe get invited to the college football playoff.
Oof.
Maybe back into the Big 12 championship game. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe, right? Riding off into the sunset on a perfect undefeated season is not a realistic possibility next year. This offensive line that has created the scenario you're in right now is gone. All 5 of them are gone. That's enough reason to say, I'm going to go out the way these guys go out. And I'm walking into Jim Harding's office, and I'm saying, tell all 5 of them that as they go, so goes my career. If we can finish this strong, I'm done. If we don't, who knows?
All right. So if we operate off the premise that Saturday is the last home game for Coach Witt, is there anything, and Kyle himself probably would summarily dismiss this,
of course,
but if you're Mark Harlan, if you're Taylor Randall, do you walk in the office and say, we'd like to do something for you?
No. What ends up happening is you just upset him if you do that. And so the celebration, the acknowledgement has to be an organic thing from the fan base and presumably the family that gathers to watch him. And then, of course, you will get that again in a more formal setting when they unveil the statue, put the name on the side of the stadium, that kind of thing. I mean, the fan base is going to have its opportunity to show the appreciation for Kyle Whittingham. Now is actually not the appropriate time to do it. To be a fan or a media member or a member of the team or a former player and to acknowledge that, hey, this is the last time we're going to see that guy walking the sideline, I think is probably the right thing to do. But I don't know what that means for each individual person.
Do you know where the Whittingham family sits during the game?
Yes.
I wonder if that'll tip our head. If we look up and there's like 70 of them, right?
There's one person I'm going to be looking for.
Who?
I'll tell you off the air.
Voldemort.
Fair
enough. Let's call a callback, Sean.
Stay tuned for the drive with Spence Checketts. It'll be at least this good. Sean O'Connell shows out. We'll do it again tomorrow. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.